Welcome to Only Talk Sports. And tonight we've got the late round games in the first round of March Madness 2023. Mainly our focus is going to be on Penn State, Texas A&M, but we'll be checking up on UCLA, UNC Asheville as well. And we'll probably be going over some of the other games, but there's just been so much action going on in March Madness today. It's been awesome. It's been a very fun day of basketball. I'm sure you guys have enjoyed watching it all day long. And I hope to see a lot of you guys here tonight for these two games and some of the other games as well. But it's been an amazing day of March Madness, and it's been awesome. I cannot wait for this game. The SEC and the Big Ten, the two conferences that have had the most teams in March Madness this year, they've been going up, and they've been tipping off against each other. You had a really good game between Illinois and Arkansas earlier. Arkansas got the better of Illinois, so the Big Ten lost to the SEC. Will Penn State be able to get a win for the Big Ten over Texas A&M in the SEC this time? It will be interesting to find out. But March Madness has been crazy. You had a couple of upsets already. You had, obviously, Princeton beating Arizona. That was huge. And you had Furman beating Virginia. A lot of people thought Oral Roberts could somehow get the win over Duke, but Duke handled business in that one. Duke's a really strong team. And Oral Roberts, even though you have Max Amos, unfortunately for Oral Roberts, they just could not get anything going. But that was a good game. And also in the Big Ten, the SEC, you had Iowa and Auburn. And Auburn got the better of Iowa. So yet again, the Big Ten coming up short. So this will be a big game for the Big Ten to try to find a way to be able to beat the SEC in this one with Penn State and Texas A&M. But still just been a fantastic day of basketball and March Madness. And it's definitely crazy. And it should be an awesome games up to nightcap with UCLA, UNC Asheville, Penn State, Texas A&M, and some of these other games. Just an awesome day of basketball. And the nightcap should be great. Now we got Dave Valensky says, interesting fact, Notre Dame is the most NCAA appearances without winning a championship. That's crazy. Notre Dame has a big basketball history, but never winning the whole thing, even though they've been in the tournament so much, that is crazy. Obviously, Mike Bray, he never got it done. Digger Phelps never got it done either. But still, Notre Dame, a really good basketball team throughout history, but just never winning the whole thing. That's crazy. Hey, Inside the Pylons, how you doing tonight? Inside the Pylons had a stream going on earlier for Duke Oral Roberts. That was pretty cool. There's just been so many great games. The Big Ten did get a win with Northwestern beating Boise State. That was a huge win. And obviously Maryland beat West Virginia. So for the Big Ten, the conference that a lot of people have been talking bad about because they lose games early in the NCAA tournament. They did get two big wins with Maryland and Northwestern winning, but it will be interesting to see how many Big Ten teams do end up winning in the first round. Already two of them lost, but two of them did win, and how far they can advance. Inside the Pylon says, if Penn State loses, can they lose close? I think they can. I mean, this should be a close game. You look at both these teams, they're kind of even. I think both teams have excellent guards. Wade Taylor, the fourth for Texas A&M, and you have Jalen Pickett for Penn State, the two guys that are on screen. Both of these players are fantastic, and I think they should have great games. But as long as, both teams don't shoot, one team shoots way better than the other, I think that this should be a really close game. I mean, if Texas A&M gets really hot from three and Penn State's struggling, then you never know. It could be a blowout, but I do think that this game should be close overall. They are showing right now that Northern Kentucky is beating Houston 14-13. It's early, but still kind of shocking there. Inside the Pylon says he's doing good. That's awesome, man. But I think overall, you look at, March Madness, so far, it's just been fantastic overall. You've got so many teams playing high-level basketball, and you've got the smaller teams giving it everything they've got. And that's always good to see. You want to see, the smaller teams believing that they can win. You don't want the big teams to just say, hey, we're going to win. We're the 2 seed. We're the 3 seed. We're going to win. These smaller conference teams, when they're playing well, that's what March Madness is all about. When you don't know who's going to win, and it is madness, and you have all these upsets, and that's what's awesome about it. Jeff says, I'm here too. Hope is a good one. Thanks for being here, Jeff, as well. Yeah, this game should be really good. I think that it has the potential to be one of the better games of the day. Now, that will be tough, to overcome and to be able to be one of the best games of the day, because there have been so many great games already. But I do think that there's, the possibility of this game to being one of the better games of the day. Dave Valensky said Penn State has such a great Big Ten tournament run to get them in the tournament. For sure, you were absolutely right. Thanks for being here, Dave. And I think that looking at Penn State, if they can carry over what they did in the Big Ten tournament to this game, then I think they have a really good chance to win. But if they, have a cold day from three, if they're struggling and they're not able to make shots and they're just, not playing well overall from the field, Jalen Pickett, he's a really good guard. He sets up his teammates well. But if players like Seth Lundy and Miles Dredd are not able to knock shots down, then I think Penn State could lose. Not be able to be competitive in this game. But they definitely showed the team that they can be in the Big Ten tournament. And if that can carry over to this, tournament, the actual NCAA tournament, the tournament that to a lot of people is the only one that matters, then I think that overall Penn State has a really good chance to win this game because they are solid. They have a great coach in Micah Shrewsbury that is a hot, coaching name right now in the coaching market with Georgetown and possibly Notre Dame. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens there with his decision, but he's been a really good coach for Penn State. And Jalen Pickett, a transfer guard from Siena, has definitely revitalized the Nittany Lions offense, averaging 17 points per game, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. He's had a fantastic season overall, and he's going to have a really good game if the Nittany Lions want to get a win. Inside the pile instead, I put a bet on Penn State covering, and it's Penn State +2, so that's why I'm like, did I mess up? Well, I mean, that's tough, when the spread's close with a cover. That's why it's, easier sometimes to go outright, like who you think is going to win, but it is tough on those. But I do think as long as Penn State plays a really good game, they could win. But Texas A&M is not a slouch either. They play really good defense. Dexter Dennis is an underrated transfer from Wichita State. He's a really tough guard, plays really solid defense, and I think that he's going to possibly give, some of the guards for Penn State some fits. Even though Penn State did play through the gauntlet of the Big Ten, I think that they haven't gone up against a defensive-minded guard like Dexter Dennis. I think Wade Taylor IV is fantastic. He plays really good on offense. I think that he'll be able to find ways to score on Penn State's guards. And Henry Coleman, he's a really good forward for Texas A&M, a big body down low. And Penn State is a small team. They don't really have a lot of big centers, but they play interesting defensive style that can give centers fits. They did make Trace Jackson Davis for Indiana work for everything he had. They did give Zach Edey some troubles, even though Zach Edey's just so large, it is hard to stop him in general. But I think both teams are really solid. They're both underrated, I would say, even though Texas A&M is a 7 seed. But I think even they're underrated. They went 15-3 in the SEC, and they're a 7 seed in the tournament. Yes, they had a non-conference slate of performances that wasn't very good, and they played a lot better in SEC play. But both these teams are really solid, a bit underrated, and I think that should make for a great game. Mighty Motive 1982, thanks for being here. He says, hey, my bracket is busted. Arizona falls. I'm going for the Zags and Timmy. Well, Arizona, that's a tough loss. I mean, losing to Princeton, they were obviously the better team. But, again, Princeton from the Ivy League, they got some smart players. And you look at Arizona overall, I think that with, the players that they have on their team, Azuolas Tubelis, Kirk Kriisa, Umar Bala, they should not have lost that game. There's no way they should have lost that game. But unfortunately, they are a team that throughout the season, they showed that they could lose to teams that they were better than. They lost to Stanford. They lost to Utah. They lost to Washington State. And it's really tough. It is very unfortunate for Arizona, but not the most surprising thing in the world because when you don't play well against every team and you're inconsistent and you let smaller teams hang around, then they can beat you. Mighty Motive 1982, he says, I got UNC Asheville plus 17.5. That's not actually a bad move there. I think that UCLA without Jalen Clark, maybe they're not as deep of a team. And UNC Asheville, you look at Drew Pember. He's a guy that transferred from Tennessee. Drew Pember has put up 35, 40 points in games before. He could give UCLA some fits. They're going to have to find a way to slow him down. And even if you slow him down, UNC Asheville has some good guards. So I definitely think that UNC Asheville could cover that. I don't know if they'll beat UCLA. I'd be shocked, even with UCLA not having Jalen Clark. But there is a possibility of an upset there if UNC Asheville plays as well as they possibly can. If they give it everything they've got and UCLA does not play a great game, there's a possibility of an upset, but I could definitely see a cover for sure. That is a large spread, so that might be a good decision. Dave Valensky, he says, I follow a lot of Big Ten sports. Since I'm a diehard Gopher fan, this year was down here for the Big Ten, and it shows when Wisconsin and Michigan struggled. Well, I mean, you look at the Big Ten, they still got 8 teams in the tournament. So I think that overall the conference did, play well. I don't think that it was a bad year for the league. It was, you could argue, a down year for the league, but I think that Purdue carried it. Indiana had, some good moments, and you had teams like Penn State that were, a surprise. Michigan State was still there. Illinois was still there. So the fact the Big Ten got 8 teams shows that it was a fairly deep league, even if it didn't have a lot of teams that were like really good, like in other conferences where you can say, hey, this team's going to win the whole thing. I don't think the Big Ten had that. Even Purdue, a lot of people have questions about their legitimacy of how good they actually are. But I think if you look at the Big Ten, it was a deep conference. And, obviously Michigan and Wisconsin are relative brands in the conference of the Big Ten. I think that they're 2 teams a lot of people expect to be really good. And yes, they both struggled, but Penn State filled the void, and other teams filled the void. I think kind of like the ACC was looking for that with Carolina being down. I think that you saw a lot of, other results and other teams, from the ACC that they were trying to show that they could be really good, like a Clemson or an NC State. But I just don't think the ACC did as well as the Big Ten did of, teams that are normally good not having good years, and then other teams rose to the occasion and filled the void. I think the Big Ten did a better job of that than the ACC. But still, it was interesting to see some teams that are normally good struggle. Jeff says, with what we have seen today, nothing would surprise me. And orange covering eyes. Well, I think if you look at, today, it's March Madness. It's not really a surprise, even though what's surprising is who loses. It's not really a surprise when it happens as much as it used to be because it's happening more often. I think that Cinderellas, we've come to expect that there's going to be 1 or 2 every year. And maybe Furman and Princeton are already the 2 teams that are. And it will be interesting to see if we have another upset or 2 tonight or tomorrow. It could happen. But I think that overall, the idea of the Cinderella is not as rare as it used to be because it's happening so often. I think it's just more of who's it going to be, who's going to lose, who's going to drop that game that shouldn't. And I think that's what still makes it awesome because you don't know. You're expecting it, but you just don't expect it to be, in Arizona over, losing to Princeton. No one's expecting that to happen, but still, there's so many Cinderellas these days. And I think a lot of it, lately has to do with the transfer portal. The fact that a lot of these smaller conference teams are getting players from bigger conferences, like a UNC Asheville getting Drew Pember from Tennessee. I think that you look at a player like him, he's a quality player that was recruited by the Volunteers because he was a fairly high-level recruit. He didn't play. He goes to UNC Asheville, and they're in the tournament. And UNC Asheville would not be in the tournament if it wasn't for him. So I think that you look at a lot of these teams, they're able to get players that are neglected by these bigger teams because there's so many other good players. And I think that that's giving these smaller teams enough firepower to potentially get an upset more often. And that's really interesting. Troy V says Big Ten was weird with Purdue and then like 7 to 8 schools at number 2 look like a whole lot of average. Yeah, that's the thing. You're absolutely correct, Troy. 100%. Thanks for being here tonight. I mean, you look at the Big Ten, they had Purdue and Zach Edey was dominating every team, that they played against. And their freshman guards earlier on in the year were great. I think later on, throughout the season, I think Braden Smith, Fletcher Loyer started to struggle a little bit. But earlier on in the year, they were fantastic. But then like you said, you look at the other, conferences, they had more star power than just Purdue. They had teams at the top. You had like the Big 12. You had a Kansas, Texas, Baylor. The SEC had Alabama. Kentucky really wasn't there, but you had Tennessee for a lot of the season that was toward the top. But the Big Ten, it was just Purdue. And then every other team had 9 or 8 losses by the end of the season. And it was, like you said, a whole lot of average. They beat up on each other. No one really separated themselves. I do think a team like Indiana, if they had been healthy all year, potentially could have been better than the record because they didn't have Xavier Johnson all year. They missed having Jalen Hood-Schifino for a few games. I think that if they're healthy, I think Indiana's a team that could have been at the top with Purdue. But it is what it is. And you look at, some of these other teams, I mean, I think that, they're just – some of them lost talent from last year. Illinois was a team that was trying to figure out how to play basketball with their new roster. And then you look at other teams. Maryland had a first-year head coach with new players. And just a lot of these teams did not have the rosters from last year, and it just – they were solid teams, but they just beat up on each other. No one was able to separate. Dave Valensky said, the reason I think this is happening is a lot of the Power 6 conferences in basketball players and only stay for 1 or 2 years. The mini majors of players that stay 4 years. That is true as well because you have a lot of these top teams They have one and dones and, or 2-year players. But like you said, you look at some of these smaller teams and you have graduate seniors. Some of them are 6th-year seniors, 5th-year seniors, 4th-year seniors. A lot of it had to do with 2020 and getting the extra year. But overall, you look at these teams, they have players that are 23 and 24 years old. And that's dangerous because they have experience. And even if a team has never played in the NCAA tournament, they just have so much experience playing basketball that they're just used to it. And they're able to find a way to win and get upsets over these bigger teams. Sillage 7, he says, thanks for being here. He said, what do you think of Adem Bona as a Turk? I'm curious. Adem Bona is a good player. I mean, he's got a lot of talent. I think UCLA as a whole entire team is very talented, but his injury is going to hurt UCLA. If he's able to play tonight for the Bruins and he's able to play at a high level against Drew Pember and try to limit him to 20 to 22 points, I think that UCLA easily wins. But if he's, struggling with his injury or overall he's just not healthy, or he's not better, even worse, he's not able to play at all, and that would be better for UNC Asheville because Drew Pember probably will be able to dominate on the glass because UCLA's backup bigs struggled against Azuolas Tubelis and Umar Balo. That's a big reason why they lost. And then you look at Adem Bona. I think that if he was in the game against against UCLA Arizona, I think he wins, outright down low, especially against Umar Balo. I think that he's a player that is a better player than a lot of people give him credit for. Is he one of the best bigs in college basketball? No, but he's a young player and has a lot of talent. I think he would have been able to slow down Umar Balo, not foul him as much. Maybe Azuolas Tubelis probably still would have had his way, but I think that Arizona goes down and UCLA wins if he's in that game. So I think that UCLA will have a much better chance to win tonight if he's playing, and if he is playing, he's playing at a high level and he's not hobbled. Then I think that overall, he is a big part of their team, and he's definitely going to be a reason that UCLA advances if they do. Jeff says today's comment that makes sense for sure on the mini majors having older players. Troy V says, as a fan, I hate the one and done. As a non-fan, I totally understand if they can get paid right now and take advantage of the limited time you got to cash the checks. I mean, you look at college basketball, used to in the past, the players went out of, high school and they would go pro like LeBron James and some other players that did it. I think that you look at, the way college basketball is right now, it helps college basketball to have these players for 1 year because you wouldn't have Zion Williamson and Duke. You wouldn't have Anthony Davis in Kentucky if these players were not allowed, to play for 1 year. If they were able to go out of high school, if they weren't basically if they weren't forced to play a year in college. I think that it helps college basketball. Where it hurts is because of the fact you're not able to get used to these players. They play and then they're gone. And I think that that's tough, especially when you look at these teams where you have, all these players that play 4 years, like you said, that helps college basketball as well because you have the familiarity of these players. It's kind of like the NBA. It's tough when all these players are moving around, like a Kevin Durant moving from team to team instead of you have, Stephon Curry that's at one team. I think that the transfer portal kind of hurts with that. But when you have these 4-year players that stay at one school, like a Drew Timme or a Trace Jackson Davis, that helps the sport the most. But having these one and dones, even though if it's only 1 year, them playing in college is better than them going right out of high school because college basketball gets to at least have them. A team's able to at least have a Brandon Miller. They're able to have, all these players. Kevin Durant back when he was at Texas for 1 year. All these players would not have played in college if they were able to go out of high school. So it at least gives college basketball the star power, even if it's for one season. Mighty Moto 1982, he says Louisiana, North Kentucky hanging tough second half will be interesting in those. For sure. I mean, you look at, Tennessee's a team that I think a lot of people, could possibly see them losing in the first round because they always do. I mean, that's been the biggest issue with Rick Barnes throughout his coaching career when he was at Texas, when he's now been at Tennessee, is that he always loses early. That's the only thing keeping him from being in the Hall of Fame. Because a lot of people are like, is he going to be in the Hall of Fame? Is Rick Barnes going to be a Hall of Fame coach? I think that if you look at, Rick Barnes overall, he has the wins. He's won over 700 games as a head coach. And he's going to keep winning. I don't know how much longer he's going to coach, but he could get to 900 wins, maybe even 1,000 if he coaches long enough. Maybe not, at his age, but still, he's going to win a lot of games. So that's a Hall of Fame career. But the problem is that he always loses early in the tournament. That's why Texas fired him. They wanted more. And you can't lose early in the tournament every single season. Yes, upsets happen like Arizona losing to Princeton. No one's expecting you to go far in the tournament every single season. But when you're losing before the Sweet 16 every single year, especially when in the preseason people are predicting you to be a Final Four team every year, it becomes a problem. And it definitely hurts your image because of the fact you want to say, hey, I've taken Tennessee to 5 Sweet 16s, a couple of Elite Eights, a Final Four. That's Hall of Fame worthy. But when you're not doing that and you're losing in the round of 32, even though you're a 3 seed every single year, like last year they were a 3 seed and lost to Michigan in the round of 32. They got by in the first game, then they lose to Michigan. It's just one of those things where you can't keep losing early. So I definitely could see Northern Kentucky beating Tennessee, but Tennessee is up 23-19 right now. And you look at Houston, they're beating Northern Kentucky 26-20, so that's kind of close. But UCLA right now, they're up 9-0 on UNC Asheville. So that is definitely a good sign for UCLA. They're doing really good against the Bulldogs early. UNC Asheville's probably limiting Drew Pember and his opportunities on the glass, but that's a really good sign for the Bruins to get out to a hot start. You don't want to let them hang around. That's the biggest key when you're a 2 seed or a 3 seed team. You cannot let the smaller team hang around. If you do, it could spell trouble. But Texas A&M Penn State is about to start. This game should be really close. I'm looking forward to this game. Jalen Pickett, they're showing his stats right now, almost 18 points per game, shooting 52% from the field, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. That is a fantastic stat line. I mean, there's not one stat line there that's bad. I mean, you're a guard and you're shooting that well from the field. And they're showing, obviously, on Texas A&M, Tyrese Radford. He's a really solid player. Wade Taylor IV. Both these teams are really solid, better than people think. Mighty Motive 1982 says, what team tomorrow do you think could be upset? I'm taking Kent State. A lot of people are taking Kent State to beat Indiana. That is a possibility. I mean, you look at Indiana, they're a team with 11 losses. Some people are questioning why they're a 4 seed, but they did have a great strength of schedule, and it's Indiana. Whether, a lot of people don't hold Indiana with as much weight as in the past because they're a team that's a former blue blood, even though they still technically are a blue blood. They just haven't been really good for a long time. But yes, Kent State is a team that definitely could beat Indiana. But sometimes, like with an Oral Roberts over Duke, a lot of people picked Oral Roberts. When you're expecting it to happen, then it doesn't happen. So it will be interesting to see what happens for sure. Penn State scores first. They got the tip, and they're up 2-0 on Texas A&M. So that's a really good start for Penn State. This is Texas A&M's first NCAA tournament appearance since 2018. Texas A&M has had a long drought of not making the tournament, so they're back, which is really good for Buzz Williams. And Julius Marble on the block, and he scores with a jump hook. It's 2-2. Troy V has Kent State going to the Elite Eight, laughing out loud. So a lot of people picking Kent State to beat Indiana for sure. Mighty Mo 1982 says UCLA up 14. That's crazy. They were playing really well. It's kind of a shock that UNC Asheville still has not scored. UCLA is definitely wanting to get that Arizona loss behind them for sure. They're definitely playing well. But it's 2-2 with Penn State, Texas A&M. Got some offense from both teams on their first possessions. 2 buckets. 6 seconds left on the shot clock. Jalen Pickett driving on Dexter Dennis. He goes up and under and he misses. It's good defense by Dexter Dennis, but a good move by Jalen Pickett. He just couldn't score. Texas A&M swinging the ball around at the top of the key. Getting it to Julius Marble, the Michigan State transfer on the block. Really underrated addition for Buzz Williams, and he scores again, 4-2. Nice start to the game for Julius Marble. He was a solid player at Michigan State with Tom Izzo, but he seems to be playing even better for Buzz Williams now that he's completely, the starting center, a feature part of the offense, instead of being more of a rotational center for Tom Izzo. Mighty Motor 1982 says UCLA shooting 100% in all phases so far. Yeah, it could be a long night for UNC Asheville if they're not able to slow down UCLA. That's crazy. Penn State missed a shot, so Texas A&M with the ball, and the Aggies throw it away. Bad pass, so Penn State will be inbounding. They're showing Penn State's record. They started the season in their first 14 games. They were 11-3, 3-8 in their next 11, and then 8-2 in their last 10. So for sure, Penn State had an up and down year, but they finished strong. And Penn State with a deep three, Andrew Funk. He was a fantastic transfer addition for Micah Shrewsbury. He's a great shooter, very streaky, but when he's on, he is really hard to guard because he can hit a 35-foot three. Dexter Dennis with the ball for Texas A&M. Wade Taylor loses the ball. What a block by Dexter Dennis. That was a major block. He blocked Cameron Winter on the layup attempt. Dexter Dennis is a fantastic defensive guard. Really helps out Buzz Williams, Aggie's team, on the defensive side of the ball. He's a really good guard on defense. And Texas A&M knocks down a three. Tyrese Radford. He's a really good shooter. 7-5 Texas A&M. 17 minutes left in the first half. Still 14-0 UCLA over UNC Asheville. Jalen Pickett swings it in the corner. And unfortunately for Penn State, they turned it over. A little bit of sloppiness from both teams so far. Could be early game jitters. I mean, when it's early in the game and you're in a tournament game like this, sometimes you just have jitters. You don't handle the ball as well as you do in the regular season. Slips through your hands. You're seeing a little bit of that from both teams. But Texas A&M going back to the well with Julius Marble. And Julius Marble with another jump hook shot, 9-5. That is not going to be able to be sustainable for Penn State. They can't keep letting him get to his right hand and getting an easy jump hook. He's got 6 early points for the Aggies, 9-5 Texas A&M. Jalen Pickett at the top of the key for Penn State, the all-Big Ten guard. Andrew Funk with another deep three, and he bricks that one. He's a great shooter, but he just bricked that one right between the backboard and the rim. Andrew Funk's a confident shooter, though. He should continue to shoot the basketball, even though he bricked that one. He's definitely not one of those players that lets a miss get to his head. So Texas A&M with the basketball. Be interesting to see how A&M tries to get Wade Taylor going. Mighty Moto 1982 asks, who do you like in VCU St. Mary's? I'll lean St. Mary's. I think that they'll find a way to rebound after the Gonzaga loss, but I definitely could see VCU getting the win. But I'm going to lean St. Mary's. I think Randy Bennett will at least get his Gales to find a way to win the first round game. So Wade Taylor, the 4 for Texas A&M, he misses the 3, and Jalen Pickett going to his post move, and they call a foul on Texas A&M. At the under 16 timeout, we have a 9-5 Texas A&M lead over Penn State. And UCLA, they're up 16-5 on UNC Asheville. The Bulldogs are finally on the board. But I think that VCU St. Mary's game could be really good. I mean, you look at both those teams. They're from smaller conferences. VCU in the A-10, St. Mary's in the West Coast Conference. They have 2 solid coaches. Randy Bennett's been at St. Mary's forever. Mike Rhodes at VCU, a solid coach. I think that should be a high-level game. VCU, interestingly enough, struggled in the middle of the A-10 conference, losing to St. Bonaventure at one point. A lot of people thought that, they were not going to win the A-10 tournament because, they were a team that maybe people thought could get an at-large early on, but they suffered too many bad losses. And then they started to get things figured out toward the end, of the season, and then they rolled through the A-10 tournament. A lot of people are liking VCU. I mean, they could win. I mean, it's one of those things where if it's like Penn State, you can carry the momentum from the end of the season, into the NCAA tournament, you could get the win. It's yet to be seen if Penn State can do that in this game. But St. Mary's, they had a great year. They were playing great basketball. They beat Gonzaga on their own floor. And then they lost to Gonzaga at Gonzaga in a relatively close game. No one really thought anything of it. Still St. Mary's great team. But then they play in the West Coast Conference tournament, and they play Gonzaga in the championship game, and they get destroyed. They played horrible in that game. They lost by 26 points. And I think that's one of those situations where, you're playing a team in Gonzaga that has so much talent. And sometimes you're able to find a way to beat them on your own floor. And, your scheme works. Your defensive style is able to slow Gonzaga down. But in the West Coast Conference tournament, Gonzaga just sped up St. Mary's. So VCU, their style play is kind of interesting because they do play relatively fast. They're not one of the fastest teams in college basketball, but they do push the ball down the court. So I think if they can speed St. Mary's up, then there's a really good chance St. Mary's could lose that game. But if St. Mary's can slow the game down, make it a game that's in the high 50s, low 60s, I think the Gales will have a really good chance to win. So it's 18-5 UCLA over UNC Asheville. Definitely the Bruins were looking pretty good early. Tennessee pulled away from Louisiana Lafayette at the end of the first half. It's 30-19 now. Louisiana Lafayette with not a lot of offense early in that game at the end of the first half. So if Tennessee can keep getting Louisiana Lafayette to miss shots, then there's a really good chance that Tennessee can get that win and avoid the upset. But Houston only up 28-27 on Northern Kentucky. That's interesting. You would expect them to do a little bit better. Troy V says, laughing out loud, St. Mary's is the second Elite Eight team of mine. I mean, you're going with some, crazy predictions. I mean, Kent State to the Elite Eight, you never know. I mean, if they can get by Indiana, then you never know. And St. Mary's, they're a team that hasn't been to the Elite Eight recently or under Randy Bennett, really, but they have a lot of good players and they play fundamental basketball. So if they can, catch a team, off guard and play to their style, then I think that St. Mary's can control the game and beat a lot of teams. But it's all about whether St. Mary's can get a team to play to their style. Because if they can't do it, and it's one of those situations where they get sped up. If St. Mary's gets sped up, then they're going to lose to whoever they play. Troy V says, in my defense, I haven't watched the game all year. Well, I mean, that definitely complicates things, but you never know. It's because you haven't watched the game. Maybe you'll be right. Andrew Funk, he knocks in another three. So he bricked the three after making a three, and he just made another one. So he's got 6 points for Penn State. It's 9-8 Aggies. Texas A&M passing the ball well around the perimeter. Wade Taylor the fourth for three, and he misses a three. But Henry Coleman with the rebound. Texas A&M's a pretty good rebounding team. Penn State's going to have to do a better job on the glass. And Julius Marble to his right hand, and he misses that one. But Dexter Dennis with the offensive rebound. Such a scrappy guard. Plays so hard. Dexter Dennis driving, and he shoots a two. And he misses. But they call an over and back on Tyrese Radford. He definitely went over and back on Penn State. But Andrew Funk, confident early for Penn State. That's a really good sign if you're a Nittany Lions fan. Penn State's made 366 three-point field goals this season. That's a Big Ten single-season record. They shoot a lot of threes, and they make a lot of threes. And when they're making threes, they're dangerous. Kind of like Iowa, but Iowa was not making enough shots against Auburn today. Jalen Pickett trying to drive on Henry Coleman. He takes a step back two, and Pickett for two. Penn State has taken the lead, 10-9. Houston's out 30-27 at the half. Texas A&M swinging the ball around, trying to get a feel for Penn State's defense. Dexter Dennis is driving in. He kicks it to Julius Marble, and Julius Marble tried to do a tomahawk dunk, and he missed. Sometimes it's better to go for the layup, even though the dunk's awesome, but he missed. Penn State driving in. Jalen Pickett kicks it to Andrew Funk. And Funk missed the layup. Henry Coleman with the rebound. Still 10-9 Penn State, 13 to go in the first. Wade Taylor, he drove in for Texas A&M. He hit a tough two, and I think they called a foul, so that's an and one. Wade Taylor's been a great scorer for Texas A&M this season. He's averaging 16.5 points per game. And he's been a big reason why Texas A&M is in the tournament. He's had some great games this year. He's also averaging 4 assists and 3 rebounds, an all-around guard. He doesn't have the secondary numbers that Jalen Pickett does, having 7 rebounds and 7 assists. But 4 assists, 3 rebounds is still solid. So Wade Taylor at the line, he hits the free throw. So 12-10 Texas A&M, 13 to go in the first. So Penn State was on a little run there to retake the lead, but Texas A&M takes it back. Jalen Pickett, just such a unique guard where he's got his back to the defender at the top of the key. Like he's going to post up from out there. It's really cool to see. Jalen Pickett with the ball again. He takes another step back too, and he draws a foul. A smart play by Jalen Pickett. He sold it for sure, but he did get the foul call. Texas A&M doesn't like it, but, I mean, he technically got hit on the arm. I mean, you can say that he sold it and that it really wasn't a foul, but I think he did get hit on the arm. But sometimes you have to sell it to get the foul call. UCLA is now at 23-7 on UNC Asheville. That is dominance right there. That is crazy. UNC Asheville is going to have to find a way to claw back in that one, or it's going to be over before they're rattled in and out. So it was 12-11 Texas A&M. 12:40 to go in the first. Jalen Pickett was a first-team All-Big Ten player. Had a great season. Texas A&M missed a three. So Penn State trying to get something going on offense. Jalen Pickett's getting hounded on the outside. He swings it to Miles Drebb, but he gets the ball back. He's backing Wade Taylor the fourth down, and he misses the shot. He was looking for a foul. They didn't give it to him. Dexter Dennis up to Tyrese Radford. Tyrese Radford in the corner, and he misses. Had a pretty good look for Tyrese Radford from three, but he did not knock the shot down. So Penn State is down 12-11 with 11:56 to go in the first half. Both teams playing solid basketball. Both teams are definitely playing solid basketball for sure. I think that if you look at Penn State, though, I mean, they've hit a couple big shots with Andrew Funk from three. But outside of that, they're not really getting into the regular offense. I think you look at a guy like Jalen Pickett. He's hit a couple of, tough shots. He hit one, but he's had a couple of big misses as well. But he's going to have to find a way to get the ball inside, get some easier shots, get some layups. But Texas A&M is a pretty long team. They don't have the tallest team in the world, but they have players with length, and they have very physical players as well. So it's going to make it tough on Penn State to get inside. But I think that overall, you look at Texas A&M, they're a team that is actually built to have success in the NCAA tournament. They have a lot of physical players, and I think that they will get Penn State fits, but Penn State's going to have to shoot a lot of threes, and Jalen Pickett's going to have to make a lot of good decisions if the Nittany Lions want to get a win. So UCLA is up 23-7 on UNC Asheville. That is crazy. Connor Johnson, he says, laughing out loud, Zona. Thanks for being here, Connor. Yeah, that game was a big shock. I mean, like I said before, I feel like Arizona is a team that just consistently underperformed against teams that they were worse, that they were better than, that were worse than them. You look at teams like Utah and Stanford and Washington State. Those are all teams that are way worse than Arizona. But Arizona lost to them. And no, you're not a perfect team. Alabama lost to Oklahoma. It happens. But still, Arizona consistently was not consistent. And they didn't give it their A game every single time out. They struggled against bad teams. And Princeton is not a bad team. They deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. They won the Ivy League, and the Ivy League has good teams. They have smart players. But still, Arizona looked nothing like the team, that they were at times this season when they beat Indiana in the non-conference. And they had big wins over UCLA in the Pac-12 several times. I mean, they just had some big wins. But I just think that they were an inconsistent team. They just could not find ways to be good every game. Connor Johnson says, haha, you see Creasa shove the camera out of his face. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate when you lose, but you got to, show grace when you do lose. I mean, credit to Princeton. I mean, it's one of those situations where they won. I mean, they deserved to win. They played really well, and Arizona did not. Arizona vastly underperformed. Same with Virginia. They lost to Furman. Furman hit a big three at the end, and Virginia could not match it. They lose. I think that was a upset that a lot more people saw coming potentially, but Princeton over Arizona maybe less so. But I did think that Arizona needed to find a way to play like they do against great teams against Princeton. And if they did, I felt like they had a really good chance to win, but they just did not do that. With Texas A&M having a 25-9 year and a 15-3 record in the SEC, I think it's insane that Texas A&M was the second best team in the SEC by conference record. They had a 15-3 conference record. They played great basketball this season. I mean, they were definitely a team a lot of people overlooked. I don't think they got a lot of, super big wins, especially like on the road. They just did what they had to do. But 15-3 in the SEC, I mean, they had some good wins, though. And the Alabama win especially. That was toward the end of the season when more people were starting to figure out about Texas A&M. But they floated under the radar for a lot of the season. But they're a really good team. And Penn State obviously was on the outside looking in for a lot of the season until they just found a way at the end of the Big Ten season to win 5 games in a row and make the tournament. But this seems going to be like it's going to be a high-level game for sure. Both teams playing well. Jalen Pickett with another step back too. 13-12 Penn State. Especially if these other games aren't close, like UCLA, UNC Asheville is 25-9. Tennessee's up big on Louisiana Lafayette. Houston's kind of close with Northern Kentucky if they can pull away in the second half. But this game could be really close. It's been going back and forth early. Dexter Dennis at the top of the key. They kick it to Tyrese Radford. Dexter Dennis driving in. He takes a tough pull-up too. Julius Marble with the offensive rebound. Texas A&M's a really good rebounding team, even though they're undersized. They have really physical players that work hard on the glass. Tyrese Radford shoots a step-back 3. He misses that one. But another tap-out for the Aggies. Julius Marble with the tap-out. Dexter Dennis with the ball. Texas A&M's passing really well right now. And they call a foul, I think, on Penn State. Buzz Williams is not happy. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they just called it off A&M. Looked like there was a foul. He goes up. Yeah, he got fouled on the arm. I mean, it went off Marble. But they're giving the ball back to Texas A&M. So it went off Texas A&M, but they give it back to Texas A&M. And there was a foul. Very interesting play there for sure. But A&M misses, so Penn State with the ball. Michael Williams, thanks for being here, Michael. He says, survive in advance. Arizona had a Final Four team this season, but they could not survive against Princeton. For sure, you got to play well every single game. One bad game, and it's all she wrote. You don't win. But I do think that, every single year you have a Cinderella, and it just so happened to be Arizona. And Virginia, if you count that as well. Penn State, the ball went under the net, and it blew the net over. And Texas A&M has the ball back. Julius Marble on the right block. He's going to try to go to his right hand. He couldn't get to his right hand. He turns the basketball over. Good job by Penn State making him go to his left hand. Texas A&M almost stole the ball from Penn State, but it went back to Penn State. Penn State has a player that's kind of banged up. They're taking him off the floor. A&M fans are not happy that they blew the play dead. You could argue that they shouldn't have blown it dead, but still, when you got a guy that's banged up, you want to get him off the floor, let him be able to rest. So, but still, usually let the play finish up. It probably did, though, especially because Penn State had the ball and it's their own player. Makes a little more sense, I guess. It's usually when it's the opposing team, they let it play on so they can try to get the fast break point. Jalen Pickett at the top of the key. Driving on Hayden Hefner. Pickett could not hit that tough, too. But they do call a foul on Texas A&M on the rebound attempt. Connor Johnson, he says maybe Northern Kentucky can beat Houston. That would make them the laughingstock. Well, I mean, you want to talk about big upsets. I think Houston going down would possibly be a bigger upset than Arizona. I know some people would argue that, but still a 16 over a 1 is bigger than a 15 over a 2. Even if a lot more people felt that the 2-seed team in Arizona had a better chance to win the whole thing than Houston potentially, but still, that would be an insane win if Northern Kentucky can do that. But still, there's 2 halves in a game. We'll see how Houston plays in the second. But Penn State with a 13-12 lead over Texas A&M, 9 to go in the first half. Jalen Pickett has the ball at the top of the key, kicks it to Seth Lundy. He's been quiet in this game, and he shoots a three and he misses. Hayden Hefner with the rebound. It'll be interesting to see if Seth Lundy can get going for Penn State because he is a really good player. And they call an offensive foul on Texas A&M. Buzz Williams does not like that call. Buzz Williams is probably going to get really mad in this game. He's a very passionate head coach. Dave Valensky says it was so weird to watch Princeton win without actually playing old school Princeton basketball, which is backdoor cuts and waiting out the shot clock. Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, I just think overall Arizona played a bad game. I didn't watch the whole thing because I was live streaming Arkansas, Illinois earlier, but I did flip it over toward the end when that game was close and all of us were watching that game together. And that game was, crazy. Arizona just looked flat. They were taking a lot of bad shots, and some shots they just were flat out missing, even close shots. Just overall, Arizona was missing shots they should have made. And it is what it is. They hit a couple more shots, they easily win that game. They just went cold late. Jalen Pickett kicks it to Seth Lundy in the corner, and Seth Lundy for three. And that is how great of a player Jalen Pickett is. He's driving in the lane, backing the Texas A&M player back, and then he kicks it over in the corner. That's why he averages so many assists. He gets his teammates great looks. 16-12 Penn State over Texas A&M, 8:20 to go in the first. Dexter Dennis with the ball. And a turnover for Texas A&M. Hayden Hefner, he was cutting, and Dexter Dennis threw it where he was, and Penn State steals the ball. Penn State takes a tough two. Cameron Winter, he knocks it down, 18-12. Cameron Winter's averaging 9 points per game this year. He's an underrated player for the Nittany Lions, and you have an 18-12 lead for Penn State, a 13-3 run for the Nittany Lions. Under 8 to go in the first. Texas A&M has gotten cold on offense. Probably have to find a way to get it back to Julius Marble on the low block. They have not scored 5 minutes, Texas A&M. Tyrese Radford dribbling too much at the top of the key. He gets it to Hayden Hefner, and he shoots a three, and he knocks it down. Big shot for Hayden Hefner in Texas A&M, 18-15. To stop the Penn State Nittany Lions run. (18-15) Penn State, 7:15 to go in the first half. Cameron Winter with the ball at the top of the key. He drives on Hayden Hefner. And a steal by Hayden Hefner. What a good defensive play. He played great defense. He went straight up, deflected the ball, and took it. And Tyrese Radford to Julius Marble on the low block, and he loses the basketball, and Penn State's bringing it down the floor again. Julius Marble's had a hot start to the game, and he's struggling. Andrew Funk for three, and he gets fouled on the three. Not a smart play by Texas A&M. You don't want to foul Andrew Funk. There's probably no way he's going to hit that shot, but he got fouled on the three. So now it's 18-15. Penn State, under 7 to go in the first half. And you look at UCLA beating UNC Asheville 34-11. That game is not even close. That's insane. But, I mean, you look at it overall, I mean, UCLA is a really talented team. And a lot of people questioning how good they are because they lost to Arizona, who just lost to Princeton. And some people are questioning with their injuries, how deep of a team they are, how they're going to play, and they're responding right now. I think that it's a good sign for Bruins fans to see their team playing this well. I think that as long as UCLA keeps their foot on the gas, doesn't allow UNC Asheville to get back in the game, then they'll have a really good chance to win. So Michael Williams, he asked, who do you like in that game tomorrow night between Memphis and Florida Atlantic? That is a really good game right there. I like these games like the San Diego States and the Charlestons and the VCU St. Mary's and the Memphis Florida Atlantics, the smaller conference teams getting to match up. I think those are great matchups. And you look at Florida Atlantic, they have 3 losses all year, just like Charleston only had 3 losses. They play great in Conference USA. And all year, Dusty May at head coach, he's probably going to be a, coaching name that could move up to the Power 5 level the way he coached this year. He's had a fantastic year coaching Florida Atlantic Owls. And I think that Memphis, A lot of people, think that Penny Hardaway is not a great coach. I know some people don't like him. I've had, as a head coach and don't think he's doing, the greatest job with the talent that Memphis has had, that he's underperformed. I've had questions, especially early on in his tenure as the Memphis head coach, that I thought the players played too much me ball. There wasn't enough passing with Memphis. I thought they, took a lot of bad shots. It was just players trying to impress to go pro. But I think that Penny Hardaway this season has done a really good job getting his team to play team basketball. Kendrick Davis, he's by far their best player. He's a really good player. The transfer from SMU, he's scoring over 20 points per game. But I think overall, Memphis is a team that's sharing the basketball. They're taking better shots this year, and they're really talented. So based off of talent, I think that Memphis has the edge. Based off of coaching, Penny Hardaway, a lot of people question his coaching ability at Memphis, but I think he's done a much better job this year. But I will say Dusty May, what he's done at Florida Atlantic is amazing, but that's probably more of a draw. Maybe you could lean a little bit Dusty May's way, especially because he has less talent at Florida Atlantic and what he's done. But still, Penny Hardaway has not been a slouch this season. But the talent definitely leans Memphis. So I would say that game's going to come down to whether Memphis's talent plays better than Florida Atlantic's, style of play of, hey, we're a smaller conference team, but we don't make mistakes. We don't turn the basketball over. We play fundamental basketball. We're not afraid of these bigger teams. I think it could go either way, but I'm probably going to lean Memphis. I think the talent for Memphis is going to be a lot for Florida Atlantic to handle. They have not played a team as talented as Memphis in a long time this season, and that's going to be really tough for them. Penn State, 20-15. Andrew Funk, he hits all the free throws, so he hits all 3 free throws, 21-15 for Penn State. That was a bad foul from Texas A&M to foul him on a 3. That was a bad move. You definitely don't want to foul a player on a 3. Those are the kind of plays that could come back to haunt you later on in the game. You could have used those points that you gave up. But Texas A&M has to move on. It's in the past. Tyrese Radford to Dexter Dennis. Dexter Dennis, the Wichita State transfer, he's had a really solid season for the Aggies. But he turns it over. Not a good play there. Michael Williams, he says Jalen Pickett's the best player on the court. I mean, he's a great player. He's probably one of the most underrated players in college basketball because he plays for Penn State. And I think a lot of people overlook Penn State. He's averaging 18 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Even though he just turned the basketball over there, he's been a great player all season. But Texas A&M just turns it over. Jalen Pickett threw it in the backcourt. Texas A&M picks it up and tries to score, but then they turn it over. It goes off his foot. So Penn State called a break there. 21-15, Penn State, 6:10 to go in the first. But, Michael, you're absolutely right about Jalen Pickett being the best player on the court. So far in this game, he's definitely showcasing a lot of his abilities. He's made a few mistakes, but no player's perfect. You're in the NCAA tournament. You can be a little wild up, make a few mistakes, but he is playing great. Andrew Funk for another 3. That's lethal. He's got 12 points. He's hit 3 threes, and he has 3 free throws. That is not a good sign for Texas A&M with Andrew Funk knocking shots down. And you have a timeout for Buzz Williams. That's probably a good timeout from Buzz Williams. Settle his team down. You don't want to get down by too much. Edwards says Houston was only up 3 at half. Yeah, they're not, playing too well right now overall. I mean, on the offensive end, they've been up and down, but on defense, probably not the worst first half in the world. Only giving up 29 or 27 at the time, and now it's 29 points, 32-29 at the start of the second half. But overall, if you look at Houston, they have to play much better than that if they want to be a team that's going to go all the way to the national championship or to the Final Four. Just like with Arizona, if they got by Princeton, they were going to have to play much better if they wanted to go that far, but they did not get by Princeton. So you don't want to let Northern Kentucky hang around Houston. If you want to advance, you got to win. You got to start pulling away. But Tennessee, they're up 10 over Louisiana Lafayette. They're up 31-21, but UCLA up 38-19 on UNC Asheville. And Mighty Motive 1982, he says UNC Asheville back the threshold of the number. Boom. Come on, Asheville lose by 17. Well, unfortunately for you, they're back down by 19. I mean, you would think as good as UNC Asheville's been this season, that they will lose by less than 17. I mean, yes, UCLA is a really good team, and I definitely see why a lot of people are picking them to go all the way. I definitely see it, even without Jalen Clark, even with a banged-up Adembone. I think UCLA is a fantastic basketball team. I think Mick Cronin's done a fantastic job as their head coach. UCLA is a really good team, the best team out of the Pac-12. I really believe that, even though Arizona beat them. I think all season UCLA was the more consistent team than Arizona. Even though you could argue that the talent was more on Arizona, they have more talent, but still both teams are really talented, but UCLA was the more consistent team. But without Jalen Clark, you would think UNC Asheville, as good as they are, would lose by less than 17, but it's not looking good right now because UCLA is up 40-19. They're playing really good basketball right now. And Edward gives us an update. Tie game 34-34 with Houston. That could be a game to monitor. If that game gets really close down the wire, might have to flip over and watch that one. It's getting interesting. There's still 17 minutes to go, so obviously Houston could pull away. But, man, they're definitely letting Northern Kentucky hang around. You never want to do that. But Penn State right now with a 24-15 lead over Texas A&M, playing really solid basketball. Andrew Funk's knocking threes in. Jalen Pickett's passing the ball well. The Nittany Lions are definitely looking like the team that was on a 5-game win streak at the end of the Big Ten season. And Texas A&M had to call timeout. Buzz Williams trying to settle his team down. You don't want to get too far down in this one. Texas A&M has really good players in their own right, but they're just not hitting shots right now. Wade Taylor, he drives in, and he misses a floater. That was a shot that could have went in, but it went in and out. So Penn State with a 9-point lead. They're on a 14-3 run in the last 7 minutes. Miles Dredd in the corner from Jalen Pickett, and another three for the Nittany Lions. 27-15. Penn State's on fire. Texas A&M is not guarding the three-point line well. They're putting a lot of attention on Jalen Pickett. And he's passing the ball on the outside, and they're hitting their shots. When Penn State is hitting their threes, they're dangerous. The only reason why they lost to Purdue because they had tired legs and they couldn't make their threes. They hit them against Indiana. They hit them against Northwestern. That's why they were able to advance in the Big Ten tournament. Texas A&M struggling on the block down low. Henry Coleman was trying to get a bucket, but they did call a foul on Penn State. Bill Meehan, thanks for being here. He says Houston played in a joke conference and barely won half their games against the awful teams in the AAC. Houston isn't making out of this weekend. That's a good observation. I mean, a lot of people question that. If you're, a person that is high on Houston, it's because you're looking at just their overall talent. But someone that's not high on Houston will look at, well, they're in the American and they had some struggles and they lost to Temple. But still, Houston is a really talented team. But sometimes playing in a smaller conference, you don't get to actually know how good a team is, because what if Houston played in the Big 12? How good would they have done? Who knows? Probably not as good, obviously, because you have to play Baylor and Kansas and Texas. But we don't, get to know that because Houston is in the American. But Houston will be going to the Big 12, so that will be interesting. Julius Marble with a long two. That's a big shot for the Aggies to cut it to 10, stop the bleeding, stop Penn State's run. He's got 8 points, so he's got almost half their points Julius Marble does for Texas A&M. It's 27-17 Penn State with 4 to go in the first half. It's been a fast-moving first half. Cameron Winter with the ball at the top of the key, hands it to Jalen Pickett. Jalen Pickett's just backing down Tyrese Radford of Texas A&M. He turns and lays it up, and he knocks it down. What a shot by Jalen Pickett. 29-17 Penn State. Under 4 to go in the first half. Jalen Pickett up to 7 points now. Tyrese Radford in the corner from Dexter Dennis. He knocks down the 3. Big shot from Tyrese Radford. Texas A&M's cut it to 9. Radford has 6 points. The Nittany Lions are playing a really good first half, but Texas A&M trying to hang around. Jalen Pickett surveying the offense, figuring out what to do. He's driving on Henry Coleman. He's trying to draw a foul on Henry Coleman. He kicks it to Seth Lundy. Seth Lundy with a turnaround long two, and he misses. Big stop for Texas A&M. The Aggies are pushing it down the floor. 29-20 Penn State, under 3 to go in the first half. And Texas A&M misses. Tyrese Radford tried to do a pull-up too, but it rimmed in and out. Texas A&M's had a lot of shots go in and out. Cameron Winter, big pass to Kevin Najee, and he hits the shot for Penn State. 31-20. Penn State's just getting everything they want on offense right now. They're getting a lot of good paint touches to Julius Marble for A&M on that side of the ball. But for Penn State, they're getting everything they want with Jalen Pickett. And they're hitting threes with Andrew Funk. And they're getting other players involved like Miles Dredd, Seth Lundy, and Cameron Winter. But all Texas A&M has is Julius Marble. That's not going to be enough. Tyrese Radford's getting going a little bit for Texas A&M. But Julius Marble is definitely the main part of the offense for Texas A&M. But Penn State has multiple players getting involved, and that's because of Jalen Pickett. Jalen Pickett's a great player. He runs their whole entire offense well. Updates on the scoring. Houston's up 36-34 on Northern Kentucky. Tennessee's up 37-23 on Louisiana Lafayette. And UCLA is up 44-25 on UNC Asheville. So UNC Asheville's hanging around trying to cover that one. Michael Williams is tie ball game right now between Houston and Northern Kentucky, even though Houston now is taking a 2-point lead. Troy V says he hopes Northern Kentucky wins. I got Iowa beating the next round. Let's go to the side of the bracket for everyone laughing out loud. Well, Iowa did lose to Auburn. That was a tough loss for the Hawkeyes. They could not make shots. But I think overall, if you look at Northern Kentucky, it is really surprising to see them play as well as they are. They definitely are doing a really good job hanging around with Houston. Inside the Pylon says it's going to be crazy if Northern Kentucky beats Houston. You never know. I mean, at this point, we've seen it all in college basketball and March Madness. We've seen Virginia go down to UMBC, so nothing's off the table. Nothing is off the table at all. And they just scored again. It's 36 all. Houston, Northern Kentucky. That's definitely a game to monitor right now. If Houston doesn't start pulling away soon, upset city could be at hand. Again, you never want to let a team hang around a 16, 15, 14 seed, none of those type teams. You don't want them to hang around because if you do, you give them the belief they can win. And when you give them the belief they can win, then they start playing even harder. If you get ahead on these teams by a lot, then they start to fold. Inside the Pylon says Virginia will always be known as the first number 1 seed to fall to a number 16 seed. Well, it's historic. I mean, you're definitely not going to forget for sure. You're absolutely right. It's historic. I mean, it's never happened before, and Virginia was the first to let it happen. I mean, I remember some people saying, oh, it's never going to happen. I mean, I don't know why people would think that when a 15 seed has beaten a 2 seed several times already, like Lehigh beating Duke. And there's already been tons of 15 seeds beating 2 seeds, that people would say that a 16 seed would never beat a 1 seed. It's just, I think bad logic overall, because if it can happen with a 15 to a 2, it can happen with a 16 and a 1. They're showing that Penny Hardaway, Denzel Valentine, and Jalen Pickett are the only players in the last 30 years to average 17, 7, and 7. That is really good company to have. Penny Hardaway was a great player in college, a great player in the NBA. Denzel Valentine was really good in college. Didn't have as good of a pro career. But still, great company to have. And Andrew Funk with another 3 for Penn State. He has 15 points. He is on fire. If he continues hitting shots, there is no way Texas A&M can win this game. He is on fire. He is feeling it. 34-20, Penn State. Under 2 to go in the first half. Big shot after big shot from Penn State. They do call an offensive foul on Texas A&M. Penn State is just pulling away. Houston's out 3 on Northern Kentucky. It's 39-36. Tennessee's up on Louisiana Lafayette 39-23. And UCLA's up on UNC Asheville 46-25 at the half. So UCLA is definitely playing really good basketball right now. But Penn State with a 14-point lead over Texas A&M. 34-20. Minute and a half to go in the first half. Jalen Pickett with the ball at the top of the key. He's had a really good first half facilitating and hitting some shots. What a pass. That was a great pass down low. And a dunk for Penn State. 36-20. Minute to go in the first. Dexter Dennis with the ball for the Aggies. Can Texas A&M get any offense going before the half? And they do call a foul on Penn State. So free throws for Texas A&M. They definitely need something to go their way at this point. Right now, everything's going Penn State's way. They're hitting threes. They're playing good defense. They're dunking. Overall, Penn State is looking a lot better than a 10 seed right now. But can they sustain it for 2 halves? And Texas A&M misses the first free throw. Tennessee's now at 41-25 on Louisiana Lafayette, and Houston's now at 40-36 on Northern Kentucky. Texas A&M misses the second free throw. Manny Abasiki, he missed both free throws. That's tough for Texas A&M. You're down 16 points, and you miss both free throws. And Penn State's on a 7-0 run. And Jalen Pickett, he misses it too, but they call a foul. He drew another foul. Jalen Pickett did on Texas A&M. Nothing is going the Aggies' way right now. They just got to get to the locker room at this point. Manny Abasiki, he did foul him on the arm. And again, Jalen Pickett selling the foul. Jalen Pickett at the line, and he knocks it down. 37-20. Jalen Pickett's had a really good first half. Overall, just Penn State's having a great first half. And a lot of it's Andrew Funk. Hitting 4 big threes and hitting 3 free throws when he got fouled on a 3. So essentially, that's 5 made threes, even though he's only at 4. But those 3 free throws were huge. 38-20 Penn State. Very shocking to see the Nittany Lions up this much. Texas A&M has not scored in 3 minutes again. They've had scoring drought after scoring drought. They have struggled on offense at times this season, but their defense usually keeps them in games. But Penn State is just scoring on offense right now. Dexter Dennis, he got fouled. Maybe he can hit some free throws. But Texas A&M just missed their last 2. And he got fouled hard. Penn State is a really physical team, but so is Texas A&M. But the physicality is not getting to the Nittany Lions right now. Dexter Dennis averaging 9.6 rebounds and an assist this season, and he knocks down the first free throw. First point for Texas A&M in over 3 minutes. It's 38-21 Penn State. 32 seconds left in the first half. Houston is up 41-36 on Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky has not scored in a couple minutes. Dexter Dennis hit the second free throw. It's 38-22. Will Penn State take their use it or lose a timeout? It does not look like they will. (38-22) Penn State. 17 seconds left in the first half. Jalen Pickett's back into Manny Abasiki down at the top of the key. He's driving in. He shoots the ball with 1 second left. He airballs it. Shot clock violation. He was trying to draw another foul, but he did not get the whistle that time. So 1 second left for Texas A&M. That was not the best possession in the world for Penn State. Jalen Pickett's a great isolation player, but not a very good shot. Three, try to build some momentum. Try to cut it to 13. And they need all the help they can get right now because they're really struggling. A&M throws it down the court. They shoot a three, and they hit it. They're going to have to review it, but Texas A&M hit a three before half. That might be the momentum that they needed. Big shot. But it's still in his hand. It was still in his hand. Tyrese Rafferty shot the three, but it was still in his hand, so it does not count. Penn State with a 38-22 halftime lead. That is a tough break for Texas A&M. That could have been exactly what they needed to build some momentum for the second half, but unfortunately it did not count. So 38-22, Penn State at the half. You definitely could not ask for a much better first half for Penn State. They played fantastic. Buzz Williams is definitely going to have to find a way to get his team to play better on offense in the second half, because if not, they will have no chance. Dave Valensky, he says, I remember a couple of years back in the early 2000s, the argument was what would happen first, a 16 beating a 1 seed or an all number 1 Final Four. I mean, that's definitely was a good discussion. I mean, I can see why some people thought that you'd have an all, number 1 seed Final Four. But that's tough too, because 1 seeds have that target on their back. It is really tough overall for all the 1 seeds to advance. Teams do everything they possibly can to beat the 1 seed. But I could definitely see how that argument, had a lot of legitimacy to it, where someone would pick the all 1 seed Final Four over a 16 seed beating a 1 seed. But you had the 16 seed beat the 1 seed first. It's definitely impressive what UMBC did to Virginia. But again, Virginia's style of play allows them to get upset when they get sped up. And once they fall behind, they're not allowed to come back. So Houston, switching over to Houston, they're up 41-36 on Northern Kentucky, but the Norsemen score 41-38. Jackson Johnson, he said, let's see if Houston pulls a Virginia. They could. Virginia is now a term now. You're pulling a Virginia if you lose to a 16 seed. But Houston hits a three. Houston's starting to settle down on the offensive end. Inside the pylons, as he said, Houston's starting to create separation. For sure. They're definitely looking more confident in the second half. But everybody, thanks for being here. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. But we got all these games going on. Thanks for being here, everybody. Penn State, Texas A&M's solid game, even though the Nittany Lions are up by 16 at the half. But Houston, maybe on upset alert. But the Cougars are up 6 now on the Norsemen, 44-38. 10:50 to go in the second half. Houston shooting another three. And Houston knocks down the three, 47-38. Northern Kentucky maybe is starting to let this game slip away. Houston's starting to get things going on offense. Edwards said, I think, to be honest, Virginia will probably take these losses because they were able to win a natty, and that doesn't happen at Virginia often or a lot of other programs. I know I wish Clemson could win one natty in basketball. Well, for sure, and that's why Virginia has that excuse, though. I mean, you look at, Virginia as a whole. They've been upset a lot lately. And they're kind of like Tennessee in that fact where they've been upset a lot lately. But one thing Virginia has that Tennessee doesn't have is that national championship recently. Rick Barnes has not been able to win a national championship in Tennessee. If he won a national championship, but all these other years he loses early, then you could say, well, at least he won that one national championship. So even though a lot of people are talking about Virginia and how they're struggling, how overall they've been upset in almost every tournament and they play bad in March, they do have that national championship. That definitely helps out the narrative with Virginia. Troy V says, it's kind of cool seeing new teams get good. UNLV and many Big East teams used to be household names growing up. Now you got Gonzaga and teams like Houston coming up. I agree. I mean, every decade has its teams. I mean, DePaul for the longest time was really good back in the 60s and 70s. It's crazy. Georgetown was good in the 80s and 90s and had a pretty good run in the late 2000s, early 2010s. UNLV was great with Jerry Tarkanian in the 80s and early 90s. But, I mean, you look at it. Like you said, Gonzaga was nowhere back in the past. And, I mean, they're a household name. Everyone talks about Gonzaga, even though people are like, oh, they're never going to win it. And maybe they won't win the whole thing. But still, Texas A&M, a program like them, they haven't been able to go to a national championship game, even though they're starting to play better under Buzz Williams. But Gonzaga, they made it to a title game. So even though they didn't win it, they have that under their belt. The fact they can say, hey, we went to a title game. We've been in the Elite Eights and Final Fours, and we've been playing great for so many years. Maybe a program like Texas A&M can get good with Buzz Williams. If Micah Shrewsbury will stay at Penn State, maybe Penn State can have some success and start playing much better basketball in the Big Ten and be one of the better teams in that conference. But if they lose Micah Shrewsbury to Georgetown or some other team, then Penn State could go downhill again. But I think overall, like you said, I completely agree with you, Troy. It is nice to see other teams that are good. Because if it's the same old teams, it's not that it's boring. College basketball is still fun, no matter what. But you definitely want to see new teams. It's awesome when you have new teams that are really good. And then you can talk about those old teams. And when they get good again out of nowhere, like Indiana, former blue blood, even though they still have technical blue blood status, Mike Woodson's having them play better basketball, and they've had a really good season this year. It's nice to see the old teams get good again as well. So college basketball, I think, is in great shape right now. It has a lot of new teams that are really good. Some old teams are getting good again, and it's just a lot of really good teams in general. A lot of parity in this year's tournament. I mean, no one really knows who's going to win the whole thing. I mean, you never really know, but in a lot of years you can say, hey, there's 2 or 3 teams that are going to have a much better chance to win it all than anyone else. This year, you could maybe point to 8 or 9, 10 teams. So Tennessee, their lead has shrunk a bit on Louisiana Lafayette. It's 48-36 with 9:56 to go in the second half. It's still got a pretty decent lead. But Houston now up by 9 over Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky with only 1 field goal in the last 7 minutes. Northern Kentucky trying to find some offense for sure in the second half. They were hanging with Houston really well. They do it a tough too. So Houston, their lead is down to 7. A little over 10 minutes to go in the second half. It'll be interesting to see if Houston really starts to blow this thing open or if they continue to let Northern Kentucky hang around. But Houston is definitely the more talented, far superior team. But Northern Kentucky's hanging around. Houston just missed another shot. Northern Kentucky's bringing the ball down the floor. And then Norseman missed a 3. But Houston, you just see how long and athletic they are for sure. I mean, Jarris Walker, he just missed a relatively easy shot for Houston, but the athleticism that he had to get it in the paint, you can definitely see why he's going to be a top 10 draft pick. 6'8", 240, he can shoot the basketball, he can drive. Jarris Walker trying to get the rebound. And they do call it off Northern Kentucky. Jackson Johnson says Penn State is basically terrorizing Texas A&M. I guess we aren't having that Texas A&M rivalry in the round of 32. Well, it's not looking like that for sure. But you never know. Game isn't over. 2 halves in every game. Potentially, Texas A&M could make a comeback. But you are right. It's definitely looking like Penn State is in the driver's seat. But you never know. But Houston's still up 7 on Northern Kentucky with 9 minutes to go in the second. Still technically on upset alert. But Northern Kentucky's offense is really starting to drop. As Edwards said, that was a deep 3 from Houston. That was a fantastic shot. That got the lead up to 9, but Northern Kentucky has since cut it to 7. Houston's offense has kind of gone cold again. But Jarris Walker, with so much talent and athleticism in the lane, hits a tough 2. It rattles home. 49-40 Houston. 8:30 to go in the second half. Jarris Walker with 12 points, 6 rebounds. Northern Kentucky trying to hang around in this game. And Northern Kentucky with a deep three, and they knock it down. As Edward said, Northern Kentucky looks like they don't try to rebound on offense. Well, I mean, it's probably one of those situations where they don't want to give up fast breaks. Because if they give up fast breaks to Houston, then they're not going to be able to hang in this game at all. They kind of have to slow it down so when they shoot the ball, they just immediately go down the floor to defense. Probably smart move by Northern Kentucky, but it definitely limits your chances to score on offense because if you miss, it's a one play and out. You shoot a 3-point shot and you miss, you're not going to get the rebound. But Houston does look a little rattled, though, but they just hit a nice floater. As Edwards said, that was a huge three for Northern Kentucky, but still, Houston is trying to stay ahead in this game. They're up by 8. But they're scrapping around, though. Northern Kentucky shoots a 3, and they miss again. Houston is rebounding the ball really well. And it looks like Houston's trying to slow this game down as well. I mean, you would think they'd try to speed it up, but they just don't want to allow Northern Kentucky to get any rhythm. So just slow it down. They got the advantage by 8 and then use their athleticism to get in the lane, and that's exactly what Houston just did there. Jamal Shed. He trucked through the lane. He was going slow down the floor, and then he just turned on the jets and drove in. So now Houston's has a 53-43 lead on Northern Kentucky. Tennessee, their lead is down to 8 on Louisiana Lafayette, 48-40. Definitely looks like Tennessee's starting to struggle on offense. But UCLA and Penn State both up big at half. You never know. I mean, Tennessee, they have a tendency at times like Virginia where their offense just disappears. And I know part of it's because of the fact Zakai Ziegler is out for the season. He's a really good point guard. And he runs the offense very well, but you never know. And Louisiana Lafayette has cut it to 5. Tennessee is only up 48-43 with 7:19 to go. So now the upset alert is shifted away from Houston, maybe over to Tennessee. I mean, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Tennessee lost. Tennessee has consistently underperformed in March Madness, in the NCAA tournament. Rick Barnes has talented teams, but they always find a way to lose. And as Dave points out, Louisiana has cut it to 5 against Tennessee. Tennessee could be on upset alert. They have not scored in a while. It's been the same score for a while. They've had 48 for like 4 minutes. And again, when you allow a smaller conference team to hang around, they start to believe. Their fans start to believe. The players start to believe. The coach believes. Everyone on the team believes. And when you give them that belief, they start to play harder. You see Northern Kentucky, now that Houston's starting to get a lead on them, they're kind of starting to fade away. But that's just not what's going on right now. In this Tennessee game, Tennessee's just allowing Louisiana Lafayette to stay in the game. So it will be interesting to see, will Tennessee start to find some offense? Because there were several games this year where their offense disappeared. I mean, it was kind of shocking to see Auburn put up as many points as they did against Iowa, because that Auburn-Tennessee game was 48-46. Both teams have really struggled on offense. But to be fair, a lot of people point out that Iowa's defense is not the best. And that is true. Iowa struggles on defense, so maybe that helped out Auburn. But in this game, Tennessee with only 48 points against Louisiana Lafayette with 7 to go in the game. That is not ideal. You want more points. Tennessee's probably going to have to get to at least 65 points if they want to be safe. I mean, if they keep defending at a high level, maybe 60 will be enough. But still, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. But Tennessee is no longer safe. They had a massive lead on Louisiana Lafayette, but they've definitely let the Raging Cajuns creep back into the game. And while Houston's starting to have their lead balloon over Northern Kentucky. The game was all tied up, but now Houston's up 10. It will be interesting to see if Northern Kentucky has anything left in the tank. Can they try to find a way to get back in the game? I'm not sure if they can, because Houston is starting to play really good basketball, but you never know. It's not over yet. But this Tennessee-Louisiana Lafayette game, I'm not saying it's the panic button for the Volunteers, but still, it's getting interesting. Hey, Austin, how you doing tonight? Thanks for being here. He says, what's up, Jeffrey? How about Princeton busting some brackets? For sure. That was, a game for the ages right there. Like someone said earlier today, 90% of brackets have probably been busted off that game alone. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Most people did not pick Arizona to lose that game and pick Princeton, but still, Princeton got the win. And they show Louisiana Lafayette's on a huge run. Tennessee has not scored in several minutes, and Tennessee has the basketball, but you can definitely tell they look a bit rattled. Rick Barnes, he's like, here we go again. Please don't let this happen. But they do call a foul on Louisiana Lafayette. They fouled Santiago Vescovi. Houston still up by 10 on Northern Kentucky with 6 to go. But Tennessee only up by 5 points. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens if Tennessee can find some offense and avoid the upset and pull away in this one. But this definitely does not bode well for the Volunteers if they want to advance far in the tournament, even if they do win this game, because of the fact their offense sometimes just disappears. That is not ideal in March Madness. You have to have offense and defense. Defense only gets you so far. But Tennessee scores down low, 50-43. That was a big shot for the Volunteers. They needed that bucket for sure. But the Raging Cage is only down 7 with under 7 to go in the game. Still too close for comfort for the Volunteers. And the Raging Cajuns score too. It's 50-45, 6:30 to go. Again, they're hanging around. UCLA's up 48-27 on UNC Asheville, start of the second in that game. The Bruins are looking really good right now. Houston's still up 10 with 6 to go. Vescovi for 3. He misses. And the ball went over the backboard, so Louisiana gets the ball back. I mean, this game is really too close for comfort, man, for Tennessee. If Louisiana scores a couple more times, they could tie this game up. And Tennessee only has 2 points in like the last 6-7 minutes. But thanks for being here, everybody. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and you like the content. Thanks for being here, though. We got some great games. March Madness is upon us. We've had some big upsets. Princeton beating Arizona, Furman beating Virginia, and could Louisiana Lafayette be another one beating Tennessee? It looked like for a minute possibly Northern Kentucky could beat Houston, and that's not out of the woods yet. But still, Houston now up by 10. But Tennessee only up by 5 on Louisiana Lafayette. That is not a comfortable lead. UCLA is now up 50-27 on UNC Asheville. The Bruins are definitely in control of that game. They seem to have neutralized the Bulldogs' offense, slowed down Drew Pember. And keeping the guards at bay, not letting them hit a lot of shots. They're cleaning up the floor in the Tennessee-Louisiana Lafayette game. Definitely want to make sure the court's in tip-top shape. Austin says Penn State is a sleeper team. Jalen Piggott should get some Player of the Year votes. For sure. I mean, it's tough when you're a team like Penn State who's a 10 seed. That's not a brand team to get the Player of the Year. And plus, there's so many great players this year. But I do think that overall, he should get some votes because of the fact he's the reason Penn State is doing what they're doing. Especially if Penn State advances far. There's no doubt about it. He should at least get a vote. I don't know if he will or not, but he's had a fantastic season. Tennessee still with a 5-point lead. Louisiana Lafayette missed a big attempt that they could have gotten a 2 down low. That was a big miss. But Tennessee up 5 with 5:40 to go in the second half. Volunteers seem to have some good ball movement. They're trying to get Vescovi a good look, but they're guarding him well. And Tennessee hits a big two, 52-45. They're trying to avoid the upset. Houston's only up by 8. Their offense has kind of dried up a bit. They're only up 53-45 with 4:40 to go, but I wonder if Northern Kentucky's going to have enough time. But UCLA up 55-29 on UNC Asheville. They're dominating in that one. Inside the Pylons asked, what do you think about Texas beating Toothpaste? It was a big win. I mean, you look at Colgate, they're a team that's been in the tournament before. They have some experience, but Texas took care of business. They didn't do what some of these other teams are doing and let the team hang around. So I think that overall that Texas did their job. They played really well, and it bodes well for them to potentially make a deep tournament run, that you didn't allow a team like Colgate to hang around. Good block by Tennessee. That was a really good block. Hey, Easy Money, he says Texas A&M is embarrassing the SEC. Penn State beating their butt. Tennessee winning, but not looking good, though. For sure, Tennessee is underwhelming right now. Their play is not where you would want it to be as a 4 seed. But if they do win, that will definitely at least, keep the narrative that the SEC is not having a good season in the NCAA tournament, that Tennessee yet again loses in the first round. That would help out Rick Barnes. But you're all right. Texas A&M, they're not playing too well against Penn State. Thanks for being here, Easy Money. How you doing tonight? Got some big games, but just glad you're here. I mean, you look at today. Today is exactly, why people love March Madness. Because of the fact you wake up and you start watching these games and you don't know what's going to happen. Like, who's going to get upset? How the game's going to go. And then you just have all these games on all day long, and they're just so fun. Having all you guys here makes it so much better. All these games are awesome. But March Madness is definitely the best time of year for college basketball for sure. But Tennessee with a 53-45 lead, now 54-45. They knocked 2 free throws down. Tennessee now up by 9 points with 5 to go. And now Houston's only up by 5 points with 4 to go. So now Houston could potentially be on upset alert again. And Penn State is now up by 18 on Texas A&M to start the second half. And UCLA is up by 22 over UNC Asheville at the under-16 timeout. Easy Money, he says the SEC was 4-0 in the day. Thanks. Good to be here. Texas A&M losing, though. I mean, overall, I think that the SEC is doing a really good job. Even if Texas A&M does lose, as long as Tennessee wins, it's not a bad day at all. But I know what you mean. You'd like to go perfect for sure. In Louisiana Lafayette, they call an offensive foul. So Tennessee up 9 with 4:40 to go. It definitely is potentially looking like Tennessee could hold on. I think that Louisiana Lafayette is definitely commendable what they're doing. They're playing well on the defensive side of the ball. I think Tennessee overall still is a team that really struggles on the offensive end. But Louisiana Lafayette definitely deserves some credit where credit's due. Edwards said, watch the player of the year is Mr. Bricks for feet. Yeah, it's going to be Zach Edey. Zach Edey, as long as Purdue at least wins a game or two, and he probably will win it anyway, Zach Edey's going to win player of the year. To Austin's point, Jalen Pickett probably deserves, a vote or two just for how good he's been this season. But Zach Edey will win it. I mean, there are a lot of other players that should be in consideration for it. Trace Jackson Davis. A lot of people have pointed out Brandon Miller. There's a lot of players. But overall, you look at Zach Edey. I mean, the numbers he's put up, even though some people argue, yes, he's 7'4", it's easy for him to score. Yes, a lot of that is true. And I do agree with that. But still, you got to score. And he's been durable all season at his big height. But it's probably going to be him. But I definitely see why other players should be in consideration for it. My pick for player of the year, if it wasn't Zach Edey, would be Trace Jackson Davis, because I feel he's had a fantastic season for Indiana at his height at 6'9", doing what he's doing, passing, rebounding, stealing, blocking. He's putting up great numbers. His numbers are like Tim Duncan's. Outside the blocks are a little less, but still, Trace Jackson Davis is a fantastic player. To me, can make a great argument to be player of the year. He could have been Big Ten player of the year, could have been national player of the year. But Zach Edey won Big Ten player of the year, so he'll probably win national player of the year. But been a lot of good players. Trace Jackson Davis, Brandon Miller, so many other players that you can make an argument for player of the year. But still, even if you don't win player of the year, it doesn't mean you had a fantastic season. Still doesn't mean that, you're in that conversation. People know that you're a great player, even if you don't win it. Houston's up 7. Houston has a 7-point lead over Northern Kentucky, and they just called a blocking foul on Houston. So it's 55-48. The Cougars are up by 7, but Northern Kentucky will have some free throws at the under 4-minute timeout. Easy Money says the SEC has that one loss in that thriller. Mississippi State to Pitt looking like Texas might lose, but it is March Madness at Princeton. Yeah, Mississippi State in Pittsburgh, that was a fantastic game. I think that overall, if you look at that game, I think that Mississippi State potentially was the better team than Pittsburgh, but they took a lot of threes and missed. And at the last part of that game, you have a 3-point shot with 2 seconds left, wide open in the corner, and you miss. You can't ask for a better look. And I know that if you're wide open in the corner, you got to take the shot, but they were down 1. I still feel they should have taken it 2. But it is what it is. But I felt Mississippi State was a really, solid team this year, but they just fell short. But kudos to Pittsburgh. And Texas A&M is definitely struggling with Penn State, but they have cut it to 15. Tennessee's up 9 on Louisiana Lafayette, and UCLA is up 21 on UNC Asheville. But Northern Kentucky, they just airballed a 3. The Houston Cougars, they're up by 7 with 3 to go. They might hold on. Kurt Dog, thanks for being here, Kurt. He said this big stage changes the game, and for sure, teams that look unstoppable in the regular season just start playing poorly. Houston's not playing that well. Tennessee's struggling. Arizona lost. Virginia lost. So many teams just do not look the same because, like you said, it's a big stage. That's why it was shocking to see Arizona State have the performance they did against Nevada, because of the fact Arizona State scored 98 points in that game. That was the most that they scored all season long. I mean, Arizona State was a solid team this year, but think about it. They scored 98 points in the first 4 games against Nevada. And I think overall, it goes to show that sometimes, even though the big stage does change a lot of teams and make them play, more skittish and not as well, Arizona State had no fear against Nevada last night. They just played so well. But Houston up by 7. 2:30 left in the game, and they hit a tough 2. Jamal Shedd, what a shot. So Houston's out 9. It's looking like they're probably going to hold on. And to Kurt's point, Houston playing so bad and still winning. They're not having a great game at all. But yes, I mean, they're playing the 16th seed. Northern Kentucky's had their opportunities to potentially get the upset, but it's looking like Houston's going to win. They just turned them over. But Northern Kentucky did get the ball back. Northern Kentucky shoots a 35-foot 3, but they don't hit it. And Houston this time with the rebound. It looks like the Cougars probably are going to hold on. They had a chance to lose. In Houston, they do miss a 2. Northern Kentucky with the rebound. Still only a 9-point game. Minute 40 to go. And Northern Kentucky shoots another deep 3, and they miss. They're not taking good shots. The Norsemen need to get inside. They keep chunking 3s up, and they're missing. Get inside. Try to get fouled. Extend the game. I don't like the shot selection at all. Kurt says going to unload on the next game if they pull through this. I mean, I agree. I think Houston could lose their next game if they play like this. Now, obviously, sometimes when you have a scare, you can go out next game and play really well. But I think that this is definitely a result that should make Houston fans not too happy. Obviously, they're going to be happy they win as long as they hold on against Northern Kentucky, but it's not going to be good for their prospects of going to the Final Four of the national championship game because they didn't play well. But overall, a win is a win. So even though Houston fans probably would have wanted to see their team play a lot better, a win is a win. And if they can take this win and say, hey, we got the job done, it wasn't a pretty game, we didn't play that well, but then go out next time around and play a fantastic game, a game that Houston's capable of, then they should be okay. But it is looking like Houston is going to hold on. They are up by 9 with a minute to go, and they're going to be going to the foul line. Easy Money, he says, yeah, I saw that last shot, Mississippi State game. Actually, I watched the whole game. That was a good game. It was a very enjoyable game, too, because it had all those lead changes, 21 lead changes. Definitely, was not expecting that game to be that good. I thought it would be a close game. But the fact that it went down to the wire like that, you love games like that. You want to see that. It's awesome. When you have two teams that are going back and forth and it's coming down to who has the ball last. Those are the absolute best kind of games. A game like this, Northern Kentucky gave Houston a scare, but Houston has a 9-point lead. It's fairly comfortable. But when it goes down to the wire, last shot, like an Arizona UCLA Pac-12 championship game, or that Mississippi State Pitt game, those are the best. Easy Money says Penn State was a cat whisker from beating Purdue. Now, that's a good pun right there for sure, and I completely agree. I mean, if Penn State wasn't so tired and they were able to hit more of their threes, I think they win. I think they beat Purdue, but they were exhausted. I mean, it was their fourth game in 4 days, and overall, you just look at their legs and they were tired. Their shots were coming up short. But tonight, against Texas A&M, Penn State's hitting their shots. Andrew Funk's having a great game. And all throughout that Big Ten tournament, Penn State was playing really well. But I think if they weren't so tired, they could have beat Purdue. Austin Williams, he says Northern Kentucky is taking bad shots. I completely agree. You cannot outshoot your way back into a game. If you're down, get the ball inside. Do everything you possibly can to get fouled. Try to get some easy shots, extend the game. But if you're taking threes and you're missing, you have absolutely no shot. But Northern Kentucky did just get a putback dunk, but they're down 9 with 36 seconds left. It's definitely looking like Houston's going to hold on. But Tennessee's still struggling a little bit. Kurt Daw collapsed for sure. Thanks for being here, everybody. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Like the stream down below. But most importantly, thank you guys for hanging out tonight, watching these games. Thanks for being here. These games are awesome. Tennessee only up by 6 on Louisiana Lafayette. I mean, they are letting the Raging Cajuns hang around. Inside the Palms with a football update, he says XFL, almost halftime, Seattle leads Houston 6-0. That's kind of surprising. Brandon Silvers must not be having his best game. Houston was dominating, but Seattle's a tough place to play. You never know. We could be wrong on that game. Easy Money says, Troy, yeah, I remember those Tarkanian running rebels. Check spelling, laughing out loud, the shark. I mean, I think that you look at a team like UNLV from the past, it just goes to show any team can win. You look at Mark Few with Gonzaga. Gonzaga was not a great team before he was the head coach. It goes to show that a lot of programs can win if you get the right coach. Tennessee got fouled. They're at the free throw line. They're up 55-48 on Louisiana Lafayette. 2:23 to go in the second. Tennessee not having their best game at all, but if they can just get by, they'll definitely have to play better in their next game if they want to advance. But they missed the second free throw. The Raging Cajuns only down 7 with 2:15 to go. You definitely, when you're a defensive team, you can win with your defense if you're not hitting a lot of shots. But when you're not scoring a lot, it makes the margin of the game a lot more lower scoring. It gives the other team a big chance to stay in the game. If you're putting up like 80, 85 points and the other team is like 60, it's so hard to come back. But when it's in the 50s and the other team's in the 40s, you might be playing great defense, but at some point you just have to score. But they do call an offensive foul on Louisiana Lafayette. Tennessee with the ball, and they call a foul on the Raging Cajuns. Tennessee with more free throws. They might pull out this one. Easy Money said, yeah, me too. I figured close. It was way more exciting than I thought throughout. A lot of great games. That's what March Madness is all about. You just cannot beat this time of year. Michael Williams, he says Louisiana's still hanging around, only down 6. Now they're down by 8 points. But, yeah, they definitely are hanging around. Louisiana Lafayette and Northern Kentucky are trying to pull off big upsets, but it does look like both are going to fall short, unfortunately, for both teams. Easy Money said, dude hitting the threes for Penn State. Andrew Funk is playing great. And he's a big reason they're winning. Him and Jalen Pickett. Easy Money said, oops, I forgot to hit the like. I'll do it now. Thanks, man. Again, everyone like the stream down below. Subscribe if you guys are new. But thanks for being here. Thank you, Easy Money. Inside the Pylon says it is a bad omen if a number 1 doesn't win versus number 16 in a dominant fashion. I don't necessarily think it's a bad omen as long as you shake it off and play better the next game, but it does show that you are definitely beatable and you're inconsistent. So I think that it could be a bad omen, but I don't necessarily think it's a guarantee that Houston's going to lose their next game or they're going to play badly and, in their next game and lose in the round of 32. I think it's possible that this is just a poor performance from them. They'll get things figured out. But still, you could be right. It does show that possibly that you're more beatable than people thought. Kurt says Tennessee lost their best player, or no. They did lose to Kai Ziegler. He's their point guard. He runs the team, and that's a tough loss. But still, you have Santiago Vescovi. You've got Josiah Jordan-James. You've got some solid players. But, yes, the Kai Ziegler's injury is huge. It's kind of like Marcus Sasser with Houston as well. I think both injuries are hurting both teams. Edwards says, yeah, Houston wins. I don't think Northern Kentucky can score 9 points in 30 seconds. For sure, it is definitely looking like Houston's got that one. They're up 10 now. Troy says usually comes down to free throws in this tournament. Yeah, if you hit your free throws, if you're winning by more than 5 or 6 points and the other team starts fouling, as long as you hit every single free throw, you should win. I mean, you have exceptions like that Iowa-Michigan State game where Michigan State hit almost every free throw down the stretch of that game, and Iowa ended up winning anyway because they hit all those threes. But it's rare. It does not happen very often. Free throws do matter. As long as you hit them, you'll win 99.9% of the time. Louisiana Lafayette hit a 3 to cut it to 5. Easy Money says, my Crimson Tide has had a few good teams. Many players in the NBA has never got over the hump. Never a Final Four championship. This is a team this year. They have that certain chemistry. I agree. Alabama basketball does not have the history of the football team. Never been an elite basketball team. But this year's team is really good. They've got Brandon Miller. They've got Javon Quinterly. They've got all these really good players. Mark Sears. They have great players. I think sometimes they are a little three-point heavy. They shoot too many threes. But Brandon Miller driving in the paint, he's a really good player. He's definitely going to be a top 5 pick, and he deserves it. So I agree with you. There is a chance that Alabama could go all the way. Edward says it was reported Miller has an MCL injury, I believe. Well, that's not good news at all. That could really hurt their chances there, but still. Easy Money says, Kurt, I think so. Austin says Penn State 3-point shots are going in tonight. Well, when a team like Penn State is hitting their threes, or in Iowa, or even Alabama, if they're hitting all their threes, you're not going to lose. There's no way you're going to lose because, threes count more than twos. The other team's probably not going to match the amount of threes that you're making. So it's just unfortunate for Texas A&M that they're getting Penn State in a game where they're hitting every shot. If Penn State in their next game can't make their shots, they will lose. But it will be interesting to see what happens for sure with Penn State as long as they can hold out against Texas A&M. They have a 23-point lead on them right now with under 12 to go. But it's one of those things where if Penn State has one bad game from 3, then they're going to lose. But Louisiana Lafayette, they're only down by 4 points with 23 seconds left, and they hit the second free throw. It's a 3-point game, 1-possession game. And Tennessee's going to have to inbound the basketball and make some free throws if they want to pull this one out. Troy V says, no, it's actually a good thing to struggle in a game. Get it out of your system early. Happens almost every year with a team that wins it struggled at one point in the tournament. Completely agree. That seems to be what happens more often. I think you look at, history as an example in March Madness. A lot of teams that have won the whole thing, like you said, or go really far in the tournament had a bad game, but you win. It's better to struggle and win than lose. It's really bad when you have a team that plays well and loses. That's always tough because how many times do you see a team that you say, well, man, they played a really great game, but both these teams play well and you come up on the short end of the stick. But then you see a lot of games where you play awful basketball. You should lose, but you win. If you do that, then it really helps out your prospects. Like you said, it doesn't always. Sometimes it can carry over and you lose again. But most of the time, if you have a bad game, and you get out of your system, like you said, Troy V, then you can be able to find a way to win the next one. That happens a lot. Inside the Pylon says Louisiana cuts it to 5 with a dagger 3. Well, now they've cut it to 3, and they have a really good chance to maybe make it interesting. If they can get a turnover, or if Tennessee misses 2 free throws, there's a shot that Louisiana can have a shot to tie the game. Tennessee just has not been able to put up points. That's their biggest problem. That is their biggest flaw. Overall, they're kind of like Virginia. They have a good defensive team, but sometimes their offense disappears. And yes, Zakai Ziegler is out. But even when Zakai Ziegler was in, they only scored 48 against Auburn. It was a 48-46 game. So they've had times, even with Zakai Ziegler, of just bad offense. UCLA is up 68-41 on UNC Asheville. Looks like the Bruins are in great shape. Houston did beat Northern Kentucky 63-52. The Cougars survive and get a fairly comfortable win over the Norsemen, and Penn State with a 59-36 lead over Texas A&M. So none of these games are really close right now. I thought Penn State, Texas A&M would be a lot closer than it is, but the Nittany Lions are knocking shots down. But Tennessee, Louisiana Lafayette's the close game right now. If Louisiana Lafayette can get a stop or turn the Volunteers over, you never know. They can get the Volunteers to miss a couple free throws as well if they have to foul and they miss both. It can be interesting. But they do get the ball to Vescovy, and the Raging Cajuns do foul. Josiah Jordan James is going to the line. These are going to be big free throws for Josiah Jordan James. If he knocks these down, the Volunteers have a really good chance to hold on. Dave Valensky says it's nice to see Penn State absolutely destroy Texas A&M. The Big Ten needed this after the 2 losses against the SEC, for sure. And then the narrative for sure would have been that the SEC was way better than the Big Ten, and that the Big Ten wasn't a good conference, because the SEC is playing really well in the tournament so far, even though Tennessee has had a little bit of struggles. And overall, you had the loss with Mississippi State as well. But still, besides that, the SEC's played really good in this tournament. But the Big Ten, you do have a big win for Maryland over West Virginia. And Northwestern beat Boise State. But, yeah, you did have the Iowa loss. That was really tough. And Illinois lost to Arkansas. So, yes, this would be a huge win for the Big Ten and Penn State. But Tennessee, they split the free throws. Louisiana Lafayette, they airball a 3. That's a big miss. Maybe they could have tried to drive in for a 2, but they chose to go for the 3. They did not hit it. So now the Raging Cajuns are down 4 with 8 seconds left. Maybe Tennessee's going to hold on. Easy Money says, Austin, yep, they're killing A&M on those 3s for sure. They are a dangerous team when they're hitting 3s. Jackson says Penn State might be that surprise Sweet 16 team if they play their cards right. For sure. I mean, literally, the formula for the Nittany Lions is keep making shots. If they keep making shots at the rate that they are, like in this game and some of the games they had toward the end of the Big Ten regular season and in the conference tournament, then Penn State could go far. They have a good team. And Jalen Pickett runs that team exquisitely. Easy Money says, when you struggle, and still especially when you beat a good team while you're playing bad, then look out when they play good. Exactly. 100% true. And that's what could happen with Houston. I mean, Houston could come back around their next game and just dominate. You never know. They definitely did not look too good tonight against Northern Kentucky, but a win is a win. But you guys are absolutely right. I think that struggling and winning is not a bad idea sometimes. You just survive and advance and then play much better the next time. It shows that if we play bad and win, how will we play if we have a great game? And then it builds their confidence back, and then they have a big game. Tennessee split the free throws again. They have a 58-53 lead with 7 seconds to go. Louisiana Lafayette, can they get a score really quick and try to find a way to keep game pressure on the Volunteers? It's not going to happen. Unfortunately, for the Raging Cajuns, they did score 2, but the game is over. The shot clock ran out, and Rick Barnes is speaking to the Louisiana Lafayette head coach. What a game by the Raging Cajuns. They did everything they could to possibly beat Tennessee, but the Volunteers survived. Rick Barnes does not lose his first game. Will this somehow spur the Volunteers to advance far in the NCAA tournament? I have no idea. But this was a big win for Tennessee to survive and advance. It's exactly what they need. And they got a big date with Duke. That's going to be a tough game for the Volunteers. Duke is playing at an all-time high right now. And it's going to be really difficult for Tennessee to win. But if they play much better than they did in this game, then you never know. Inside the Pylon said, thank you, Penn State, for making me money. Well, it's not over yet, but it's definitely looking like you're going to get that one right. Penn State's up 63-43 with 8:55 to go. But a really big win for Tennessee. Easy Money said exactly what I was saying with Inside the Pylons. You don't want to get ahead of yourself. It's not over. The fat lady saying there's still 10.5 minutes left in the Penn State Texas A&M game. You never know. There's still time. Inside the Pylons is right. Louisiana just airballed a 3. Inside the Pylons says, what games would you guys like to see Only Talk Sports cover tomorrow? I'll definitely have to figure out my schedule. I'll definitely be doing a game or two tomorrow, but I'll have to figure it out. But I cannot wait to do that, though. I hope you guys will be there. But I'm sure there's going to be some great games. But anybody that's new, like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. But thanks for being here. We got some big games tonight. Tennessee surviving over Louisiana, survive and advance. Tennessee found a way to win. Kurt said, please just cover. Easy Money said, well, Louisiana tried, got the last bucket, but too little, too late. Oh, Rocky flop one. They'll play them Duke boys. That's a funny one right there. I mean, Tennessee, again, vastly underperformed the tournament. If they lose to Duke, I mean, it's another early exit. I mean, even though they didn't get, I guess you would say, humiliated by losing their first game, it's still an early exit and not what you want to see if you're a Volunteers fan. Dave said, that hurts. I had Louisiana Lafayette winning this game in my bracket. Greatest mascot ever. Well, I actually had a, slight gut feeling that possibly Tennessee would lose as well. So I definitely see why you picked Louisiana Lafayette. I personally lean Tennessee. I thought that they might hold on. Maybe that was too easy of an upset. But I completely agree with you that I felt that it was very possible they could lose. Edwards said Duke will beat Tennessee. It's definitely possible as well. I definitely think Duke's more talented. They have better guard play right now, especially with Zakai Ziegler out for Tennessee. I think Duke has better guard play. I think they have better center play. So as long as Duke's talent plays at a high level, they don't turn the basketball over a lot, then Duke should beat Tennessee. But if Santiago Vescovi has a big game, and I think that you look at some of Tennessee's other players, they don't turn the basketball over and they can make it a low-scoring game, kind of like Virginia did with Duke. I think it's possible. I think it is definitely possible for Tennessee to beat Duke. But Santiago Vescovi is going to have a big game. He's going to have to score like 25 or 30 points for Tennessee to have any shot because Duke's so balanced. Kyle Filipowski, Derek Lively, Jeremy Roach, Tyrese Proctor, Dariq Whitehead, Ron Young. They just have a deep team, and that's going to be really tough for Tennessee to beat. Should be a good game, though. Kurt said, never count those chickens till they hatch, but great job. You never want to do that, but sometimes you definitely feel confident that the game's over, but you never know. You have to wait till the end. Inside the Pylon says USC, Michigan State. That's definitely a good game to call, but I'll definitely have to be going to bed right after this if I have any shot of doing that one, but we'll definitely figure it out. You guys will know. I'll definitely will let you guys know. But thank you guys so much for being here tonight. We have some big games. Yes, the final two games aren't looking too good. Penn State, for being close anyway, but Penn State's up big on Texas A&M by 24. UCLA's got a big lead on UNC Asheville. But it's still super fun to talk about March Madness and see what's going to happen for tomorrow. Still some high-level basketball going on. Thank you guys so much for being here. Easy Money says, Texas A&M stepping up the intensity, but Penn State won't take no for an answer, laughing aloud. They're saying not today. I mean, literally nothing is working for the Aggies. They're down by 24. Penn State is not allowing them back in the game. Kurt says, I agree, Edward. Duke is young and fearless. They have a lot of youth. They have a lot of freshmen like they do most years. And yes, the freshmen didn't really develop like, some of the years in the past. They had a lot of injuries this year, and some of the players, necessarily did not play as well as some of the freshmen Duke has had in the past. But I do think overall, I still think that Duke is a really talented team, and they're starting to get things figured out at the right time. And that's the key. You might have fairly rough season, compared to what Duke normally does. But if you get it figured out in March, that's all that matters. And they seem to have figured it out. How to play on offense. Their defense is improved. Duke's just playing really good basketball on both sides of the floor. I think that overall, when you're a team that's peaking at the right time, it doesn't matter how you played earlier on in the year. And Duke is definitely a dangerous team right now. If they can get by Tennessee, who knows how far they can go. Edwards said the Miami and Indiana games are my games to watch tomorrow. I am looking forward to both of those games. Drake, Miami, Kent State, Indiana, both potential upset watch games. A lot of people are picking Kent State over Indiana, and I can see why. Because outside of Trace Jackson Davis and Jalen Hood-Schifino, Indiana, their other players are very inconsistent. But if Trace Jackson Davis and Jalen Hood-Schifino have big games or the other players step up, I think Indiana can get by. Miami is great guard play. They can keep Norchad Omier out of foul trouble, and Isaiah Wong and Nigel Pack have big games, and I think Miami can definitely beat Drake. Kurt says, who is everyone's top two to win this madness? Well, as of now, it's almost impossible to guess that right. I mean, I know Alabama's a definite pick for a lot of people, a really good option, and they could. They have a lot of talent. Brandon Miller's playing really well, and their other players are stepping up at the right time of the season. I know somebody said Brandon Miller has a slight UCL tear, but we'll have to see how that's going to affect Alabama. But I think overall, Alabama's a team that could go all the way. Kansas could repeat, but that's going to be tough. I think there's a lot of really good teams here that have a shot. UCLA, a lot of people think that even though they're not 100% healthy, they could go all the way. And the way they're playing against UNC Asheville tonight, that's a possibility. But they're going to have to play like that the whole tournament. Marquette. A lot of people think Marquette could advance far. Purdue. A lot of people aren't sold on Purdue because they never advance far, but you never know. This could be their year. But there's a lot of teams that have a possibility. But I think Kansas, Alabama, Marquette have a really good chance. It should be interesting. Texas, a lot of people think Texas is possible. They played really well tonight as well. Inside the Pylon said USC, Michigan State, Memphis, Florida Atlantic, Kent State, IU are the games that matter to me. Those are all good games, for sure. Definitely good games that you could, call for sure. I might do a couple of those games. I'll have to figure it out. But it's going to be very interesting. I'm just looking forward to watching these games. This is going to be awesome. Easy Money said, who does Miami play? I forgot. Inside the Pylons offers the answer, Drake. That's a high-level game. Drake is a solid team. Their head coach and best player is a father-son duo. Tucker DeVries is a great player. And I think that Drake could possibly upset Miami, but Miami would have to play a bad game because overall, Miami has really a lot of talent. They have good guard play, and guard play wins in March. So Drake would have to play a high-level game, and Miami would have to play poor for that upset to happen. But I don't think it's more than likely. I think that Miami has a better chance to beat Drake than Drake does of upsetting Miami, but you never know. It is possible. But Miami is a really good team, though. Kurt says, I think Texas looks real and Alabama as well. It's going to be exciting. Like you said, Texas played really well tonight. Alabama has a lot of talent. So I think that overall, those are two teams that are definitely in the hunt for a title. But it will be interesting to see if both teams can perform at a high level throughout the whole entire tournament. And if they can, then they're definitely two teams that are in the hunt to win the whole thing this year. Edward says Tennessee can't match up with Duke. It is an awful matchup for Tennessee. Again, I agree with that statement. I think Duke has too much talent. They have too much depth. I think Tennessee can win if they get a big game out of Santiago Vescovi, if Josiah Jordan-James plays really well. But I don't think Tennessee has the center depth to stop Kyle Filipowski and Derek Lively for a full game. And I think that overall Duke has a lot of weapons with their guards, and they're starting to play better. They're playing better and better as the season's gone along. And I think that as long as Duke plays a beep level game or better, then they have a really good chance to beat Tennessee. Tennessee will have to bring their A game a lot better than they did against Louisiana Lafayette if they want to win. Easy Money says, oh, yeah, Drake, Miami better stay on their toes, or Nikes, I should say. That's a good one. Miami just will have to play hard. Shoot the ball well, not turn the basketball over. you can get by Drake. Kurt says, thank you. First time here. Really enjoyed your show. Thank you, Kurt. Thanks for being here. It's really awesome to have you guys all here to watch these games. Again, both these late games that are still on right now, Penn State, Texas A&M, and UCLA, UNC Asheville are not close, but it's still basketball. Still awesome to have you guys here talking some March Madness. Looking forward to the games tomorrow. Should be a lot of great matchups. Easy Money says, Kurt, that's who I'm picking the championship, Bama versus Texas. Hoping my Crimson Tide win. That would be a fantastic game, I think. If you have Bama, Texas, or Bama, Kansas, something like that, or Bama, Houston, or Texas, Houston, just any of those kind of teams, it'd be high-level basketball. I know a lot of people are off Houston right now for the way they play, but if they can get things back on track, and Marcus Sasser healthy. But that should be a great game if Bama, Texas happen. There's no way you could really see that game being bad unless one team just played bad, but that's a great matchup. Inside the pylons, he says, XFL update, Seattle 15, Houston 0 at the half. That's a shock. It'll be interesting to see if Houston can come back. I almost picked Seattle, really, I did, because Seattle's a good team at home, and I just felt Houston, the way they're playing, undefeated, but still 2 halves in every game. Kurt Dahl says, easy, I like your style. Thanks, man. Talking about Easy Money as well. He's awesome, too. You guys are definitely awesome. You guys are the reason this show, this live stream is what is. You guys are definitely making it a great show. Thank you guys so much. Austin Williams, he says, we have one surprise upset so far, but this is only day one of the tournament, especially if you don't count Furman, Virginia. Princeton, Arizona is definitely your upset, but still technically you could say that Furman, Virginia is an upset because it's 4-13. But I definitely agree with you that the big upset is Princeton, Arizona. Dave says, my friend's wife's dad used to create the courts for the Final Four from the mid-'80s to the late 2000s. The Rise Court and the Final Four is his idea. That's really cool, Dave. That's awesome to hear stuff like that when you get to hear about like the behind-the-scenes stuff. That's awesome, man. Inside the Pylon says, since I'll be at work, I won't be able to call them. That's unfortunate. Easy Money says, shocker, Jeffrey. Brandon Miller didn't score today for real. He's got a bit of a groin injury, but Pringle and others picked up the slack. But can you believe it's Brandon Miller didn't score at all 0? That's insane. I mean, as talented of a player as he is, even when banged up, you would think he would not, be held scoreless. That's insane. That is insane. But I can definitely see how Alabama could win a game with Brandon Miller not scoring, though. Because you look at Alabama's roster, they have so much talent. They have a lot of good players. And that could bode well for them later on in the tournament if Brandon Miller is not 100% healthy or he's not having a good game. The fact that they were able to win this game, even if it was against Texas A&M Corpus Christi, to be able to win without him scoring a lot of points and the others step up. That's always a good sign when you can win without your best player scoring. It's a really good sign. But again, thank you guys so much for being here. Everybody like the stream down below if you guys are new. Subscribe to the channel. Thanks everyone for being here. Got some great games today to talk about and some great games tomorrow. But Penn State with a 69-48 lead over Texas A&M with 4 to go. UCLA is up 30 on UNC Asheville. Easy Money says, hey, Kurt, thanks, you too. Dave says he got the idea from the University of Minnesota basketball court. Williams Arena, a.k.a. the barn, is a Rise court. For sure, that is always crazy to look at. Vanderbilt as well, how you have the step. The players have to step up. You always feel like someone will get hurt sometimes forgetting to step down and they would just fall. But, I mean, as long as you're aware, it should be okay. But it is a cool-looking court. It's a unique idea seeing that like that. Edward points out Vandy has one also, for sure. Tim said, what's up at Only Talk Sports? Thanks for being here, Tim. It's been a great day of March Madness. I mean, college football is an awesome sport. I love college football. The playoff, the regular season is great, but basketball has some great action as well. Both sports are awesome. Inside the Pylon says, what's up, Tim? Easy Money says, what's up, Tim? Did USC play yet, or is that tomorrow? They play Michigan State tomorrow. Easy Money says, thought so. I've been watching basketball all day. I didn't think I missed anything. Thought they play tomorrow. For sure. You're good, man. USC Michigan State's tomorrow at noon. If I can wake up early enough, I might, potentially be able to do that game, live stream that one, but it depends on my schedule for sure. But I'll definitely be doing a game or two tomorrow. I hope you guys can be there if possible, but thank you guys for being here tonight. You guys have been amazing. Austin Williams asked game of the day. If you're talking about today, I mean, probably Princeton, Arizona, because of just the magnitude of the upset. But if you're talking about tomorrow, people for sure have talked about Indiana, Kent State, Miami, Drake, Michigan State, USC. There's a lot of potential good games tomorrow. Florida Atlantic, Memphis. Tim says hello to Inside the Pylons. Easy money. He says, yeah, Bama has a good group, especially with Brand Miller. But plenty of good players. Sears, Clowney, Bediako, defense with Pringle, Quinterly. I guess that's enough to live. I mean, yeah, when you start going down 5-6 players like that, you know you're a deep team. I mean, Javon Quinterly last year was a great player, and then he tore his ACL in the tournament. But the fact he's like the 5th or 6th or even 7th option for Alabama is insane. That's how deep they are. Bediako's a really good player in the post. Noah Clowney is a great freshman. If Brandon Miller wasn't getting all the attention, I think a lot more attention would be going to Noah Clowney, and he's a potential first-round draft pick as well. I don't know if he will be, but he has a lot of talent, and the NBA definitely is looking his way. But Mark Sears, great transfer addition from Ohio. Nate Oates did a great job with this roster. And it stinks all that happened with the campus shooting and everything. But if you not looking at that situation, Alabama's had a great season overall. Just a fantastic season. They've got a great team. Rest in peace to everyone that's passed away on campus shootings this year with Michigan State and Alabama. It's just so tough. Death is awful, but again, unfortunately, it happens. People make bad decisions. And in basketball games, people make bad decisions as well. I mean, you look at this game right here, Texas A&M and Penn State, not a close game. Even though the Aggies were the higher seed, but Penn State playing really good basketball. James Scott says, which conference will get eliminated first? Thanks for being here, James Scott. That's a good question. And Penn State hits another 3, Andrew Funk with another big shot. I think it's possible that, a lot of people would say at the beginning of this, the Big Ten, but, they've got a couple big wins. I don't think the Big 12, it would be tough to see the Big 12 getting eliminated first. But, I mean, the Mountain West, they're going down. I mean, if you're talking about just Power 5, I mean, obviously the Mountain West isn't the Power 5, but they've had some losses. But if the Big 10 in the round of 32 or the Sweet 16 struggle, it could be the Big 10. The ACC, if Duke somehow lost early, because besides Duke, the other teams are really struggling. But as long as Duke's still alive, the ACC will stay alive too. That's a great question, though. I think that the Big Ten could possibly be that conference. It's tough to see the SEC or the Big 12, but the ACC could as well if Duke loses. Pac-12, I mean, they could be eliminated as well if UCLA loses. But if UCLA stays alive, then they should be fine. But that's a great question, though. Tim says, key to USC beating Michigan State will be USC's perimeter defense. Michigan State can light it up behind the arc. I agree. They got to slow down Tyson Walker. Boogie Ellis has to do a really good job against Tyson Walker. If Boogie Ellis allows Tyson Walker to have a big game, then I think it is possible, that Michigan State can win if Tyson Walker has a great game because he's a fantastic player. A.J. Hoggard as well, Joey Hauser. If they're hitting their threes, USC will lose. But if Tyson Walker cannot slow down Boogie Ellis and he has a big game, then I think that overall USC could win because they have solid players as well. I think both teams match up fairly well. It should be a really high-level game. I'm looking forward to that one. But it's going to come down to the guards, Tyson Walker, Boogie Ellis, who has a better game and who slows down the other more. Easy Money says, thanks for another great show, Jeffrey. You're awesome. Y'all take care. Good luck to y'all's team, except for Maryland Saturday. Laughing hell out. Roll, Tide, roll. Catch you later. Thanks for being here, Easy Money. You're awesome. Means a lot. Definitely can't wait to see you tomorrow. Thanks for being here. It's been an awesome day of college basketball, and it's almost wrapped up. UCLA has gone final. They beat UNC Asheville 86-53. The spread definitely was not covered of 17. UCLA blew the doors off of UNC Asheville. Unfortunately for the Bulldogs, they were eliminated, and it wasn't even close. But a big win for the Bruins to rebound after that loss to Arizona. Texas A&M, they're down by 21 with 2 to go in this game. Wade Taylor just never got going for the Aggies. Dexter Dennis, he tried on defense. but just could not slow down Penn State. And Andrew Funk and Jalen Pickett had big games for the Nittany Lions. And now Penn State is going to move on and play Texas. If they can hold on the last 2 minutes with their 21-point lead, which they should, so they will play Texas on Saturday. Austin says USC could be an Elite Eight team. They have the talent to do it. For sure, you have to get by the first round. It's one of those situations where you have to get by in the first round, and then you just have to keep advancing. You have to keep winning, keep playing at a high level. And if you can keep doing it game in and game out, then USC could be a team that goes far. But it is so tough. You have to do it game in and game out. You can't have one bad game, a.k.a. Arizona. One bad game and you're out, even if you're a really talented team. It is so unfortunate for a team like Arizona that had so much talent for them to lose the way they did. But again, you have to play well every single game. But I do agree with you, Austin. The talent is there, but USC will have to play well for several games in a row to get that done. Inside the Pylons, he said, I think the Big Ten will be eliminated first, but great question. I agree with you. The Big Ten, the reason why is because a lot of people are not sold on Purdue because they don't advance far. So if Purdue loses early, that takes out your top team. Indiana's in a tough bracket. If they can't get by Kent State or Miami or / Drake, then they could lose early. And you look at some of the other teams in the conference, none of them are high seeds, so it is definitely possible that the Big Ten gets eliminated first of the major conferences. But it could be the ACC as well if Duke goes down, or the Pac-12 if UCLA does. But that is a great question. It should be interesting to find out. But the Big Ten really needs to have a team advance far to help with the image of the conference, because they've really struggled in March Madness last few years. Inside the Pylon says, that is what makes March Madness better than the NBA playoffs. Well, it's single elimination. The NBA is awesome, but you have 7 games, and you're seeing game after game after game, and you lose and you still have a chance. I mean, the playing game is a little bit different, but when you have the 7-game series, it's a little bit different. But when you have March Madness, it's single game elimination. If you play bad, you could be a 1 seed and lose to a 16 seed like with UMBC Virginia, or a 15 seed in Princeton beating Arizona. The results are so much more crazy because you only have one crack at it. Austin said Texas, Penn State, what a style clash, for sure. And Penn State is going to hold on and win over Texas A&M. Never gave up the lead. They never gave up the lead. They played well all game long. The Nittany Lions close out the Thursday night games in March Madness, the round of 64, with a 76-59 win over the Aggies. What a game from the Nittany Lions. Fantastic performance all around. If they shoot as well as they did against Texas A&M tonight and they play like this against Texas, they could beat Texas. But they're going to have to play really well. They're going to have to hit a lot of shots, and it will be tough. It will be tough. Because overall, Texas is a team that more likely is going to put up more points than Texas A&M did. But what a game for the Nittany Lions. It shows that they did belong in the tournament, and they played really well. Michael Williams says, who's your favorite team in the NBA? Well, for me, I mean, it's tough because I like a lot of teams and a lot of players in the NBA, so it's kind of tough, especially when the players move around and you like a certain player. But, I mean, probably consistently since from childhood, I've probably liked the Boston Celtics the most. I've always kind of liked the Celtics, especially with Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Rajon Rondo. So I've always kind of liked the Celtics, but it's kind of tough. I mean, in the NBA, just not as many, connections because the players change, and overall it's just, not consistency with the roster. And sometimes when the rosters aren't the same as what you liked before, it's hard to like the team as much. But overall, the NBA is fun with the playoffs, but there's nothing like March Madness. Absolutely nothing like March Madness. Edward coming out with the Celtics for sure. # bleed green. Edward loves the Celtics and Clemson. But what a day of March Madness. You just had all those great results. And Penn State beating Texas A&M in the nightcap game. They played well all game long. Did not allow Texas A&M to get back in the game. Just key. When you want to win in advance in March Madness, when it is single game elimination, you can't have any bad games. And Penn State, all game long, just played consistently well. Good night, Dave. See you tomorrow. Thanks, man. I'll definitely be back. Thanks for being here. But everybody that's new, like the stream down below, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. But everybody, thanks for being here so much. You guys were awesome all day long on the earlier stream and this stream. The games were awesome. And this is what March Madness is all about. All these big results. I mean, you had some typical ones like Texas over Colgate, Alabama over Texas A&M Corpus Christi. But then you had some shockers like Furman and Virginia, Princeton over Arizona, and Penn State beating Texas A&M the way they did. Just a lot of crazy results. But it was a lot of fun. And again, you guys in the comment section, you guys made it so much better. Thanks for all your comments. Thanks for being here for both streams. But that's going to wrap it up tonight. I will be back tomorrow, probably to live stream a game or two more, figure out tomorrow what games I'm going to do. But thank you guys so much for being here. Penn State closed out the night with a big 76-59 win, but there were great games all around, and I'm sure tomorrow will probably be just as fun. So many more great games, and I'm looking forward to it. But again, that's what March Madness is all about, and it should be a lot of fun. But thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow. March Madness has just begun. It's a lot of fun. But thank you guys